Good morning, everyone. We're just checking to make sure that we can be heard in the Zoom room.
I'm hearing you well, sir. Thank you very much.
Terrific. Okay. Chair Crandall, I think we are ready to begin the meeting when you are.
Want me to go knock on our office?
Yeah.
Doors?
There we go. Got it set up. Just make sure that my sound's off. There we go. There we go. Thank you, Sam. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the July 12th, 2022 Board of Supervisors meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order and start with the moment of silence. Does anybody have a moment of silence they would like to offer?
Not at this moment.
I will go ahead and offer a moment of silence for Wesley Faxton. He's of Upper Lake, a young man, 26 years old, who we lost last week, or actually 2 weeks ago. His mother, Angie Arroyo, is a lifelong resident of Upper Lake, and stepfather, Rob Young. And so, yes, I would like to offer a moment of silence for him, and also the Brown family of Nice. Sammy and Robert Brown Jr. of Nice lost their baby Santos, and so I'd like to offer a moment of silence for those folks. Supervisor Sabatier, can you lead us in the pledge?
Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I figured since you came back from France that we would make sure.
Make sure I came back patriotic.
And so our item number 4 is items to consider not posted on the agenda. Are there any of those in place as of now that anybody has? All right, with that, we'll move on to our consent agenda. And I know we have quite a bit, so we have 34. And so I'm pretty sure that if there's anybody that would like to pull a consent agenda item, usually these items are all passed with one motion. However, if there's somebody that has a concern about one of the consent agenda items, we can pull them. So I'll go ahead and open it up for anyone from the board that would like to pull anything from the consent agenda. Supervisor Sabatier?
Mr. Chair, I apologize. You might want to write these down. I'd like to pull item 5.2, 5.7, 5.9, 5.10, 5.12, I believe, can be canceled. That's the one that I believe we already approved on June 4th. 5.13, 5.16, 5.21, and 5.23, and I'll explain why for that as well.
Are there any others? From what I understand, the fire chiefs wanted to pull 5.22 as well. So we have 22, 23, and then 5.32 as well,
Yes,
right?
please.
And that's for a minor correction or something like that. We could probably take it up. All right. So I'll open it up for the public in case there's anyone else that would like to pull any of these items. All right. And so what I'll do is bring it back to the board for action.
So, Mr. Chair, since I created a mess, I'll see if I can clean it up a little bit. I move to approve 5.1, 5.3 through 5.6, 5.8, 5.11. Which one was the one that you pulled, 22?
22, yes.
Okay, 5.14 and 5.15, 5.17 through 5.20, and 5.24 to 5.31, because we pulled 32.
Yes. for
And then 5.33 and 5.34, I approve all of the above from the consent agenda. I move to approve all the above.
So I have a motion and...
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. And so we will take up 5.32. And then with that, we'll follow with 5.22.
Good morning, Board. Scott DeLeon, Public Works Director. We requested that you pull item 5.32 because we had a typographical error. We apologize for the oversight. In the executive summary, we inadvertently included our previous county surveyor's name, and though the recommended action is correct, we did want to correct that typographical error in the bottom paragraph of the executive summary, where we would strike the name of Michael A. Mueller and add William Vance Ricks. And so I'll go ahead and let your board, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. And I suppose after you take action, then I will introduce you to our new county surveyor.
Any questions?
No.
No? All right. I'll open it for the public if there's any questions from the public. All right, bring it back to the board for action.
Mr. Chair, I move to appoint William Vance Ricks as the County of Lake County Surveyor.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Great, thank you very much. I would like to introduce William Vance Ricks. Vance comes to us from Mendocino County. He has owned his own land surveyor business for the last 10 years, has done a little bit of work in Lake County, so we're familiar with him in the office, and we're extremely excited to have him, and just wanted to introduce you to him. So if you ever make it up to the third floor, you'll find him in the office next to mine, and like to welcome Vance to Lake County. So thank you.
Welcome to the team.
Welcome.
Nice to meet
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, so I'm not sure if any of the chiefs are here, so we'll just let that one wait a little bit. We'll come back to some of our pulled. Is there any other pulled that you can think of that?
Well, we do have Brian Fisher here from TID, if
Okay.
you wish to.
And that's
That
the,
item.
which one is that one? Let me see here.
5.2.
Okay, 5 points. So we'll take up 5.2. Approve agreement between the County of Lake and Visit Lake County, California for the provision of administrative services in the amount of $78,000 from July 1st through June 30th, 2023, and authorize the chair to sign. And so this was pulled. Supervisor Sabatier, did you want to?
Yeah, I appreciate the work that the TID is doing. I have no problems with the agreement that is in front of us, though I would like to kind of, I guess, express myself on things that I would like to see different, especially if we're providing money. I'd like to see what are the outcomes that we are looking for, not just supporting what's already happening. One of them is, and some of this is going to be difficult to swallow, but I think it's important for us to discuss it. In the presentation that I saw both in the city of Clear Lake and here, there was one thing that stood out to me, and I do appreciate the fact that there was a little bit of diversity in some of the pictures that were shown, but I want to see more diversity, especially if we're looking at San Francisco and Sacramento. What I saw was not as diverse as I think that we could do. I think that we utilize the easy-to-access assets, board members and other things like that, but I think we need to try to go deeper into the community and make sure to hit as many different sectors as possible so that when we are advertising to these metropolitan areas and trying to invite them, it really makes it look like we're inviting everybody that lives in those metropolitan areas. I also saw that there was definitely more, and I think it's easy for those places to be more advertised, very heavy on the Lakeport side, on the Kelseyville side, and a little bit on the South Lake side. But I felt like the Clear Lake side and the like Clear Lake Oaks, Lucerne area was a little bit lacking, and I want to see what's the efforts being made to really try and encompass the entire county. It's great for us to collect the TOT, it's great for you to collect the TOT, but how are we helping businesses in the individual areas? That to me is an important part. So those are some of the things that I would like to see. And one of the other things is, I know you've been, I don't want to say alive, but you've been here for 5 years, and you're about to restart on a potential 10-year process, and just, I don't think I can force you to do this. I think it's an option, maybe to show accountability and proof for the public, especially as you're looking to reconsider another 10 years, is maybe doing a fiscal audit. I don't know if you do those every single year or not. I'm not aware. But just to show this is where the money came in, this is where the money came out. It just shows transparency, it shows accountability. And again, if you've already been doing that, that's perfectly fine. But those are some of the things that I wanted to bring up that I felt were somewhat flags that were raised in the presentations that I saw, that I hope that maybe we can see some of those things change for the better and be more inclusive all around. And I know that we've been working hard here to ensure equity and diversity, and I think that it will help in advertising outside of this area in making people more apt to say, hey, I want to go and visit over there, if we include that in our advertisement as well. So those were my only comments. Other than that, that's it.
Hey, is there any other comments from the board? Brian, did you want to come up do you have anything you want to add? Or?
So, yeah, I'd love to address diversity. It's something that we're definitely striving to do. It's difficult sometimes to try to pay people to be your models. So we've used social media calls, and we found free models all in county. So we're just trying to be resourceful, but we have had, there is some diversity there. It's definitely not diversity of color. So that's why it doesn't maybe scream at you. But we're very cognizant of it. We're trying to be. We do an annual report. It's part of our bylaws every year. So I've delivered an annual report to every jurisdiction that we have, and I will continue to do that. So it's usually in June at the end of the fiscal. And I think there was a third point that you brought up, and I'm sorry.
There was, in that annual report.
Nice and Lucerne. So actually, this month, North Coast blog post. We've got a North Coast blog post. We wrote a big piece on Nice, Lucerne, the restaurants to go to. And we struggle sometimes trying to circle the lake. I'll be honest with you folks. We're trying to sell a package here, and sometimes, you struggle trying to find what fits in that package that's going to look good in places that people aren't from here. So we do our best. We could always do better. We know that. These funds are hugely important to us. I stand here as a guy who's paid TOT 3 times this year, and we still don't have a TOT assessment check from the county for this year. So there's 2 counties behind, we're 2 quarters behind. There's no January, February, March. We obviously don't expect April, May, June. I just wrote that check. So the $78,000 is what we're going to use to pay our bills. We've got vendors. We're running advertising. We've got a lot of people, a lot of resources. So it's hugely important for us to try to keep our float up and keep ourselves current with our vendors. We've got agencies, social media stuff. Anyway, you guys get it. You've seen the presentation. So any help in just keeping us in our funding is very appreciated. Thank you.
And I share your frustration with our timeline when it comes to doling out the TOT. That includes some other issues that have been talked about multiple times here at the board level. Appreciate the fact that there is a new blog that just came out for the North Coast. I'd love to see that effort continue, and I know that it's hard to do the entire lake all at once. It's more of what I would like to see in the future, not saying you don't get this money if you don't do this. If we don't set goals and we just give you money, to me that we're not doing our job correctly. But if we would like to see some of the goals accomplished, then it helps all of us be more successful with what it is that we're going to get out of the TID.
Yeah.
Just want to work in a collaborative way rather than just waiting and watching you commit and do the work that you've been doing since the beginning. And I know it's a growing and progressive thing, and I appreciate the progress that has been made already. Within the report, is there a fiscal audit that does occur within that?
Yes, there's
Okay.
an annual report. It's on our website. You
Okay.
can look at our profit and loss, and our all of our statements are on our website, which is discoverlakecounty.com.
Okay, I appreciate that.
The other thing is we are in the middle of renewal, so we are paying a consulting firm $4,000 a month. We still don't have any data from our treasurer tax collectors department. We've got, I'll beg. We're trying to run this thing like a real organization, state of the art, and it's hard. It's discouraging. It is painful. So that is the truth. And Patrick had some good news today. She spoke to him. That's good. But, I mean, we've been going months. This is just really hard to try to run it this way. It's not working. And there's $4,000 every month clicks by because we can't get this thing done. So that's my reality.
All right, so I'll bring it back to the board for action.
Mr. Chair, I
Supervisor
move-
Pais, go ahead. Yeah.
Did you do public comment other than him?
Yeah, I did, but I'll open it up again just in case. Is there any other public comment? No, we'll bring it back to the board. Go
So
ahead.
I appreciate all that you do. The TID is working really hard on these goals and making great strides. So I move to approve the agreement between the County of Lake and Visit Lake County for the provision of administrative services in the amount of $78,000 from July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2023, and authorize the chair to sign. And we'll continue to push from our side.
Thank you.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Maybe pet of the week, since we have, just in case we get a little out of control there. And so far, I think our pet of the week's been doing really well, but maybe we should jump to that item.
All right. How would that work if I go into the timed items and then wanted to go back to one of the? Okay, all right. So what I'll do is I'll go on to the, from consent agenda, we'll go straight to the timed items, which is 6.1, Lake County Animal Care and Control Pet of the Week. And so I'll let you go ahead and.
Very well behaved.
She's extremely well behaved. Good morning, my name is Haley Del Fiorentino. I'm a Lake County Animal Care Control Officer. With me this morning I have Autumn. She is a treeing walker hound. She's about 6.5 years old, and she's really just the most well-behaved, sweetest girl I've ever seen. She's actually done really good this morning. She came from a home that had small children, cats, and other dogs, so she gets along with everybody. We've also tested her while we've had her, and she got along with everybody that she met. She's also already spayed, so that does knock her adoption down a little bit. With an approved application, you're going to be paying for licensing, rabies, and that's about it. So she'll be a really good home for anybody that is interested in getting a hound. She's really, really calm on the hound aspect.
See, that was one.
What's her energy level like?
This morning I had her out, and she was pulling on the leash a little bit, but she was actually really calm. She is probably the calmest hound I've ever met. I haven't even heard her howl at all at the shelter, so she's actually doing really good.
So does she need wide open spaces, or would she do okay in a home?
I'm sorry, what was that?
does she need big open spaces and lots of running, or is she do okay?
She would probably need at least one walk a day. She was an escape artist in her previous home. But as long as somebody exercises her, I think she'll probably be a couch potato.
Awesome.
See, that was the marketing scheme that I was trying to help with, was to show how long she could be well-behaved. So I was
She's
trying
done
to-
great. No, even when
That
she
way
was
you-
jumping on me, she's like, maybe.
Right, see, there are too many potential people that will adopt. That's what I was hoping for, but, well, thank you.
No, thank you. Have a great day.
All right, you too. All right. So I will go ahead and, I see that the chiefs are here, so I'll go to 5.22. Approve Amendment 3 to the agreement with Marsh EMS Consulting to provide professional services for Med Health Preparedness Response EMS, not to exceed $105,000, and authorize chair to sign. And so, Chief Ciancio.
Good morning. Nice to be back here, Mr. Chair and Supervisors. The Lake County Fire Chiefs have noticed that this was on the agenda and wondered what about it. We've read over it and have some concerns about the vagueness of the contract. This is also the third amendment to his contract without any deliverables that have been met. I'm not really sure if they have or they haven't, but I haven't seen a report on that. The fire chiefs have some concern about some of the items in the contract could cross over to the canceled RFP that was canceled late last month. We were encouraged by that RFP going out to hopefully fix the EMS system and the interfacility transports, things like that, for once and for all with the RFP and someone coming in and helping us that has more expertise. Because that was canceled and because this is on the agenda now, some of those items could be crossed over into that RFP. And I'm just wondering if that's part of the deliverables or not. The other chiefs would be here. There was a lot of meetings this morning, so they couldn't all be here. Chief Grable and myself were the only ones that really could make it. I think Chief Duncan's on his way, but he may not be able to make it. We just want to express our concern with giving this amendment to his original contract without a lot of deliverables and the vagueness of the contract.
Okay. And I see that Jennifer Baker is on, so Jennifer, if you'd like to unmute, or if Jonathan's available as well. Her sound is through the phone, that's fine. If you wanted to just go ahead and...
She might be one of the phones.
Which phone would that be?
1929.
262-1929. All right. There you go. And I think it's *6.
How about now? Can you
There
hear
we
me
go.
now?
We can hear you. You'll probably have to turn off the sound on your computer or something to that effect so that we can hear you.
Well, it's weird because her phone was muted, but we could hear her with just a video unmuted. So I'm guessing the video works.
Okay.
So, yes, Ms. Baker, if you're using your phone for audio, if you can please hit *6 to unmute.
There we go.
Good morning, Board. Good morning, Chief Ciancio. To speak, I was hopeful Jonathan was here. To speak to the Third Amendment for Mr. Marsh, he has provided deliverables. He did a Mohawk manual for us that went through draft for procedural disaster response. He has done several tabletop trainings for us internally and has also hosted with the hospital recently. The addendum to get him to continue on is for him to support us in any needed disaster response through this next fire season. With the absence of public health officer, director of nurses, and myself and Jonathan being a bit brand new to the team, it's the thought that this amendment will allow him to facilitate in disaster response and making sure that we're aligned appropriately.
All right.
So,
Thank you for that. Chief, did you?
Yeah, we wanted to express our concern with the moving, keeping it forward. He was part of the original RFP that got canceled. And we would really like to see that RFP done. And so that all parties involved and all stakeholders involved in that RFP process for the EMS issues, the interfacilities, and the ambulance ordinance, we really take a good hard look at that once and be a part of that process. So I'm hopeful that that RFP comes back out if there's going to be reorganized, and if so, and it's not just we'll do it in-house with a consultant that we already have.
So I think she shook her head that they were moving forward with the RFP.
I believe that was the intention, to table it at this time, but to come back to it because it still is a matter that needs.
The RFP or this item? Okay, the RFP.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else with public input on this item? All right, I'll bring it back to the board for action. Supervisor Sabatier.
I just wanted to make a statement because I have been involved in these conversations as well. There is an absolute delineation between what this contract is and the RFP process. The RFP process is supposed to come back in the same process that it should have been, and so that there will not be overlap, as was stated, that there might be some vague overlap between the two. So this is specifically for the MOAC and the needs for emergency services during any kind of disaster, but not necessarily, overlapping with the EMS services and the LEMSA and other things like that that the RFP will be looking at, including IFTs.
Okay. Are there any other, Supervisor Simon, go ahead.
Just a question, timing, when is the RFP? Because it seems, this has been a long, ongoing conversation, whether it's Supervisor Brown to myself, it just continuing. And I know our fire chiefs, definitely have concerns about it. So in that conversation, timing, when do we come back? Because I heard Jennifer say too, for fire season is all year long pretty much now. So do you guys, was there any discussion in when the RFP may come back, or?
I think Ms. Baker would know better than I would, but I know that it was in the near future, not in the far future. As far as the current status of the IFTs, I know in speaking with the chiefs, there have been some changes that are positive in how we're being able to transport our patients out of the county to a higher level of care. Whether that has the sustainability built into it right now that we would like to see or not is not where we feel the most comfortable. That's why we want to continue with that RFP process and make sure that it's not just strengthened for a temporary time, it's strengthened for a long period of time. But the timeline for the RFP, I think Ms. Baker would know better than I would.
Unfortunately, I apologize. I would have to defer to Jonathan for the timeline against it. But I do not anticipate that it is a delayed many months down the road. I do know that it is a
The sound went out for some reason. But what it sounds like is we could get in touch with Jonathan to find out that timeline. Okay.
Yes, sir, I apologize. I'm not privy to the exact timeline.
Okay.
All right, thank you. So I guess we'll take action, or if there's anyone that would, we opened it up to the public already. Supervisor Sabatier.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve Amendment Number 3 to the agreement with Marsh EMS Consulting to provide professional services for Med Health Preparedness Response EMS not to exceed $105,000 and authorize chair to sign.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carries 4-1. All right. With that, there are some other, there are a lot of other consent agenda items. I think what we'll have to do is come to those after lunch. So we'll come to those at 1. or after our lunch break. So immediately after our lunch break, we'll come to 5.7, 10, 13, 16, 21, 23, and 32. So, and 9, I'm sorry. And we'll probably start off with 9 at 1. So from that, we will get to our regular non-time, or our actual timed items. We've already conducted the 9:05, and so we'll go to 6.2, public input, and it looks like I have 3 documents here that, so I have Jillian Perillo. Did you? Oh, okay. Oh, I have it backwards. So, Anina Van Voren.
Good morning. My name is Annunziata von Vorene. The last time I'm the founder of Any Positive Change. The last time I was here was 11/2/2021 with a threat of discontinuing our services, drug user health services. The Board of Supes opted to continue that and requested a report from public health within 60 to 90 days. And my ask is, where is that report? We submitted to public health our data on December 23rd, 2021. It seems like a long time. I'm sitting here and I'm listening to all these amounts of money being thrown around, and I want to say, we have provided this free health service to the County of Lake. We've never gotten a penny from the County of Lake. I have written every grant for every rig, for every sharps container, for every alcohol pad, and yet why are we so hobbled? So there was a resolution that came out of the Lucerne Area Town Hall filled with a lot of misconceptions. I filed our response. Hopefully you have that in front of you. And I want you to know that we do so many other things than besides syringe services. We're putting on an amazing movie. I'll leave them here. I don't think I can fling them at you. Absolutely free to the community of Lake. At the Supervisors. It's called Powerlands, made by a young Navajo woman that lives in the hot Navajo Nation in Arizona. It's about the destruction of indigenous lands worldwide and a resistance movement. Ivy Camille Manybeads will be at the Supervisors on July 24th to introduce her movie and to be available for questions and answers after each showing. 2 free showings. We do so much more. How come we can't get this on track? I mean, if we're talking about accountability and transparency, the people that we see in Lucerne last Tuesday, 4 women came by independently, not known to each other, telling us their story of drug use and telling us that they now were in recovery, and 2 of them, I think, were going to AODS. This is such a big issue, and I have not really been invited to sit down since 11/2/2021 to sit down and tell you about what I do, what I know, what I see on the streets. There's never been a drug-free world, not even in prehistory. The thing is, how are we going to manage this? With the Drug User Health Organization, no drug user in their right mind who injects drugs will use a used syringe with the option of having a clean syringe. When you hand out condoms, you can't make that same assumption. You'll never know if those condoms are being used. But I'm here to tell you that people who inject drugs will use a clean needle as opposed to a used needle. And was my 3 minutes up? I see you.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I heard something. But,
Okay. So I just babble and ramble on, but I am been serving Lake County since August of 1995. This should not be a political issue. This is a public health issue, and we're here to serve people. We run a low barrier buprenorphine program. We put on a movie. It's an amazing thing that we do, and all at no cost to the County of Lake. So that resolution that came out of the Lucerne Area Town Hall was filled with misconceptions, as I know the world is. I mean, the whole discussion of fentanyl. No, it doesn't kill you if you touch it. It has to go into your body. There's so many things that we could be doing to move this discussion forward and to sit together, but I have not been invited, as far as I know, and I'm open to it. So,
Lucerne Town Hall is Thursday at 6 PM at the Castle. You
I
can-
am aware
that's this
of
week.
that. I have never been invited. That resolution came about, and when I've seen,
I'm just letting you know. I
Yeah.
don't know if, I know you've been invited because we spoke in person before, and you've been invited before. Everyone's invited. It's a public,
I don't need an armed guard or anything?
No.
Okay, because it doesn't quite feel real warm and fuzzy.
believe me, everywhere I go, that's how it feels, so I understand.
Well,
So
I
we
don't
have,
want, that's not
let's
the world
see,
I
who's
want to
next?
live in.
Yeah, neither do I.
All right. Thank you, sir. Sirs, ma'ams, all of you.
Gillian Perillo, did you want to, or Carolyn Jarrett?
I'm short. I'm pulling it down. Hi, my name is Carolyn Jarrett. I've lived in Lake County since 1985. I was a teacher in the Canocti School District, and then I ran for the school board and served 2 terms in the Canocti board. So I have really been working and hoping for the betterment of Lake County for many, many years. I'm here to talk about the reason why you should be supportive of any positive change. It's a harm reduction program. Harm reduction is something that I think we all should be in favor of. It does not promote drug use. It reduces the medical, law enforcement, and social costs to our community. The site injection infection rate, sexually transmission diseases, HIV, and hepatitis rates are all falling because of the work that Anina and her fellow workers are doing. Drug-related deaths also are down because of fentanyl interventions. We cannot ignore this problem. We cannot use law enforcement or prayers or just ignoring this to make it go away. We can't pray it away, and we can't shame it away. That doesn't work. You have to meet people where they are and work with them. And that's exactly what Anina does. I would hope that the board would be progressive and enlightened about this issue. I would hope the board would look at the research and the science about what works. I would hope the board would look at the guidelines that the state of California has handed down about the use of, sorry, I've lost my words, of glass pipes and other interventions. I'm very disappointed, along with Anina, that the board has allowed your own Department of Health to go so long without having been held accountable for doing their part in coming up with a report that to you about this problem. We in this county are spending thousands of dollars to improve the image of Lake County. Let's not be putting lipstick on the pig. Let's support a program that actually works, and any positive change is one of these. And I would hope that you would have a change of heart and not be treating Anina as an outcast, but rather to embrace the work that she does and wholeheartedly support her and the work that she is doing. Thank you.
Thank you. And, yep, Jillian.
Well, I just want to say that I met Anina when she was before the board on November. I saw her when she was before you, and I reached out to help her because I was very impressed with what she was doing. And I have worked with her for the last several months. We had weekly phone calls with Public Health, with Emily, and with Layla. We've worked diligently on getting an MOU together. We had a completed document probably in February, and we have done everything that we possibly know to try to get this matter back to the Board of Supervisors. And we're just asking you, please, to bring it back and to look at the MOU and to sign it. By the way, along with Emily and Layla, we also worked with people from the state harm reduction who think Anina is just a hero. I mean, she is so well respected at the state level as to the work that she does. And so just asking you to please bring it back so we can get this matter signed and move forward with the great work that she's doing. Thank you.
I see phone 1929, and that is Jen. Jen, did you have your hand up, or I see that, there you go.
Hi, what I can add to this one is, to the best of my knowledge, the report is complete. Ms. Grant did send me back the MOU with a request for a minor revision that I immediately sent back to her. And so it is all still moving in process. It's moving in process, and I anticipate it back very soon, and I was hopeful that I was getting it on the agenda before the end of this month.
Thank you. Kathy Herdman. What's that? I'm sorry. Oh, I thought I heard something. Kathy Herdman, you have your hand up. If you would unmute, you have 3 minutes.
Yes, my name is Kathy Herdman. I have been listening to the discussions about harm reduction for several months now, and I just wanted to reiterate that harm reduction is not the same as enabling, which I think a lot of people get confused. Any Positive Change has been working in Lake County diligently for many years to promote safe drug use for those people who are not yet ready to enter treatment. As the previous speaker said, we can't just ignore the drug users in our county. They have been here for years. They will continue to be here. People use recreational drugs, and some then slip into addiction. These are our people. These are our children, our parents, our grandparents. We can't just turn a blind eye. We can't just say that if the truck goes away, things will be all better. It won't be all better. We have a problem. We have a community that can support positive changes no matter what they look like. And I beseech the board to see that and move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands up. Is there anyone else in the room that has anything to state during public comment? Not seeing any. I'll bring it back to the board, and we'll close public input for this time and move on to our 6.3, presentation of California's proposed Care, Community Assistance Recovery and Empowerment Court, and this will be presented by Director Todd Metcalf.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Todd Metcalf. I'm the Director of Lake County Behavioral Health Services. I am here to present, it's kind of, again, like the Cal Lame presentation a couple weeks ago, a very high-level overview of Care Court. This, just like Cal Lame, is a bit of a moving target. So I had a presentation all done a couple weeks ago, and then there were some other changes to this, so I apologize that I am going to have to read from a script just to make sure I don't forget anything. But so I think we can move to the next slide, please. I know someone's, there we go. So Care Court. What is it? Well, as Chair Crandall said, CARE, we love the state. CARE is an acronym which stands for Community Assistance, Recovery, and Empowerment. This initiative is a result of a Senate Bill 1338 that was passed in February of this year. Next slide, please. So what this is, Care Court is a proposed framework to deliver mental health and substance use disorder services to individuals experiencing incarceration or homelessness. What it's expected to do is to connect folks who are in crisis with a court-ordered care plan up to a period of 12 months. It could go longer than that, but that's still apparently up for discussion. But it's a 12-month plan to get folks housed and connected to programs and services for which they need. It's kind of another one of those wraparound services, you hear me say that a lot, to ensure that those in need do have access to appropriate services and programs and resources. Really, the goal of Care Court, it's kind of an upstream approach to prevent more restrictive conservatorships and or incarceration. But it is not for everyone experiencing behavioral issues and homelessness. It's basically designed to focus on folks with schizophrenia or other psychotic disorders that can result in mental illness and substance use disorder. Next slide, please. Well, I couldn't help but show this particular slide. This is the state's vision and version of how this whole thing is supposed to work. I kind of get a headache looking at it. I only included it because if you can't fall asleep tonight, you could study this, because this is the proposed sequence of events when someone is engaged and enrolled in Care Court. But I'm not going to spend time on this because it's too much. Next slide, please. So there are positive aspects of this initiative. As we learned with Project Room Key, the importance of intense case management is vital to individual success in overcoming, in particular, behavioral health issues. And again, the terms no wrong door and wraparound services really ring true around this, because it does ultimately result in positive outcomes for folks that do receive these services. So I am excited about this part of Care Court, but it is going to require a bit of work. Next slide, please. Yeah, clients' rights. This is a concern not only because of the potential for stigmatization of those enrolled in Care Court, but there are proposed sanctions and penalties that individuals could potentially face if they do not successfully complete this program. And that's still unclear. And even though, again, the overarching goal of Care Court is to serve folks with behavioral health issues, the substance use disorder part of it is still unclear. And I've been participating in meetings around this, and as I started with this presentation, it is a bit of a moving target. But I just wanted to bring it to your attention because I know actually a couple of you board members have brought this up, that it's sort of on your radar. But I'm just wanting to give you a heads up as to what's coming down the pike. Next slide, please. So this is not just a behavioral health services problem. There is funding coming down to support this, but it's not coming to behavioral health services. It's right now, funding is going to the courts. There's no money coming to behavioral health services. And needless to say, as you've heard me say before, I mean, we're struggling with capacity issues, staffing issues, and so being short-staffed, this is going to be a bit of a heavy lift, especially with no funding behind it for us. And on top of that, I just recently learned that once this happens, that my staff that will be sitting in court working with these folks, that time is still not billable. It's not Medi-Cal billable. So another concern about the funding piece of it. Next slide, please. Oh, there are more concerns. So there was a state hearing about Care Court a couple weeks ago, and they were really focusing on the housing and homelessness piece of this. So as we know, we already have a tremendous housing shortage here in Lake County, and this will become more of a problem as folks move through this care court process. As you've heard me say, you know, higher levels of care in county and out of county, which we really don't have many or any in county, they're already full, they're already at capacity and have waiting lists, you know, a mile long. This would obviously lead to the Behavioral Health Services Department having to contract out for more services, which, again, as I mentioned earlier, there isn't any funding coming to us to support this. Next slide, please. So really, the most disturbing piece of all this is that the state still has not finalized the policies and procedures around how this is really supposed to work. There are a lot of politics involved in this. Folks in need are often bounced from one organization to another in order to you know, meet their needs, and that's not a good thing. And so there's a lot of talk about, and there's a lot of pressure from these entities that I mentioned up there, the hospitals, et cetera, around who is really going to take responsibility for this. From what I know and understand, behavioral services is pretty much going to drive this, because we are going to walk these folks through this process. And again, that's the funding piece is difficult. I am a board member of the County Behavioral Directors Association, and that entity has been extremely vocal around supporting this and creating funding that will help us fulfill this initiative. But at this point in time, there is no money, and there are a handful of counties, I just learned, that are going to be part of this pilot. Lake County is not one of them. A handful of counties are going to start doing this, actually effective this month. And those that are not will be asked to participate in July of 2020, or next July, 2023. So we'll see how all of this plays out. It's concerning, again, because of the funding piece, and then also just the capacity piece of it, that funding is fine, but even with money, it's still challenging to fill positions that I still have unfilled. So for more information, you can go to the California Health and Human Services website. There is some other data on this. I haven't looked at it lately. There could be something new that I didn't talk about here, but I just wanted you to know that this is yet another initiative that my department is facing, and I have some concerns about how we're going to be able to fulfill it. And with that, please don't ask any questions, because I probably won't have any answers. But I just wanted to let you know this is what's coming at us, and I'm concerned. So thank you.
Supervisor Pyska.
So, do you know which counties are in the pilot program, and are there rural counties that
I
are
honestly
included?
don't, Supervisor Pyska, and I'm sorry I don't have that information. I just learned that last Friday, that there is a sort of a pilot launch of this, but I was grateful that our county isn't one of them.
Yeah. Well, I just bring that up because we're doing a different pilot program with the state, and we're learning a lot, and I think the state is learning a lot through that process too. So it could be really advantageous to us that we're not part of that pilot at the moment.
Yes.
But I'm assuming that they have representation from rural counties and smaller counties, and not just the urban counties.
I make that assumption as well, and as I always say, I of course, as I learn more about this, I will certainly bring it back to the board, or just shoot you an email. But I just wanted you to know that this is all I know so far about this, and it's a big deal.
Supervisor Sabatier.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing this to us. I know that CalAIM was part of a innovative California waiver to Medicaid, saying let us take the money and be innovative in how it is that we're going to provide the service. This seems to be completely off to the side where you can't use the Medicaid dollars, which makes it difficult for what's being asked of us because we don't get access to those funds. Could you provide, I have two questions, because you were kind of saying it's a very specific group of people that would be eligible to be part of this program. What kind of population are we looking at as far as the numbers that you might feel you're seeing in your department that might fit that criteria? Are we talking hundreds? Are we talking dozens? I'm not quite sure what that number looks like, but I thought I'd at least ask to see if we kind of have an idea of what we're looking at.
I don't believe it's hundreds, but I would certainly say dozens, because again, this addresses folks experiencing homelessness and or if they're in, you know, a detention facility of some kind. Those are the two folks that this would serve. And again, it's specific mostly to folks experiencing some sort of mental illness. Though it does speak to substance use disorder, but that's still, again, that's still not very clear. And, you know, I forgot to mention that how this is supposed to work is that there would be a referral to the court coming from, you know, a wide array of folks, you know, first responders, my department, family members. And I think that care court could be an appropriate next step after someone might be placed on a 5150 or 5250 hold, or for those that could be diverted from certain criminal proceedings. But again, this is where my staff is going to have to get involved to do the assessment, put them on a hold, and then develop a plan for this client to move through this process. And again, I mentioned earlier that anytime my staff spends in court, I can't bill up for it. And so I'm just deeply concerned about the fiscal lift this is going to create for my department.
Right. My other, appreciate that. My other question is the comparison to things like veteran court, and I know you and I have had conversation about homeless court, or also you have mental health court to a limited capacity, that is, but what are some of those similarities where we can look at what we already have in existence and being able to place that in there somewhere?
This, I think, would cover all of that. Because again, it's really addressing folks that are incarcerated and or homeless, and so this, I'm guessing, could or would take the place of a mental health court. Veterans court, that's sort of a different thing, but from the way I understand this, it looks like it would operate very much the same way.
Right. No, and I sat down with. At a conference, there was a judge from Sacramento County who kind of spoke about what Sacramento's already doing before care court even has been discussed and came out. He spoke of the difficulties as well as the successes that come from it, but very much compared it to Veterans Court and the success that we see from that to deviate people from incarceration in order to try to get them to follow a step-by-step process of this is what you need to do rather than having to go into jail and be incarcerated. I think that has merit. But what do you need from us? Because I'm concerned that we're going to get thrown something again of mandates without any support. I know that I've been kind of holding back from bringing anything to the board for writing anything about this just because it keeps changing. Why even write something when it's not necessarily set in stone? But I think we're getting closer and closer, especially now with the pilot program coming out, where we do need to provide our voice to the state and making our demands in order to be better prepared, hopefully in position to be successful when this does get thrown at us. That's what I'm hoping that we can get to is kind of getting our representatives to support our position and our needs, and writing letters to, I guess, Department of Health Services in order to get some of these changes done, because I feel it's going to be kind of like our medical jail, where we've closed down prisons, brought prisoners now to be jail inmates, and we have to pay for their long-term, decade-long medical stuff rather than what used to be limited 365 days of county jail. And I just feel like that's what's happening, is we're going to take on state responsibilities without the state funds.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly it. And I'm supposed to be, what time is it? Oh.
You're late.
Yeah, I'm late.
Limited?
Yeah, I was supposed to be in a call with Mike Thompson's office to talk about healthcare in Lake County. The social services director and health services director will be there, and I just at the last minute assigned one of my staff to be a part of that. But this was actually something I wanted to bring up because it is of deep concern. And as I mentioned, the County Behavioral Health Directors Association has been very vocal about this, and they're actually a very powerful group. Well, as again, I'm a board member of that, but the state is hearing from us, but all the California counties are deeply concerned about this, and some of the CalAIM initiatives that I spoke to a couple weeks ago. The funding is an issue and staffing is an issue, and not just in Lake County, but it's a statewide issue.
I'd love to get to the proactive part where we actually, from the board, rather than just from your department, speaking for the county, basically, telling the state what it is that we'd like to see in order to make this happen, because not doing that means we're just going to get what we get.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Any other questions from the board before I open it up to public input? Is there anybody in the room that would, chambers that would like to speak on this item, this presentation that Director Metcalf has given? All right, anybody on Zoom? And then I'll bring it back to the board. Supervisor Simon, go ahead.
Yeah, just trying to be proactive. You know, the whole conversation is the funding. It's another mandate coming without funding, which is a real challenge. We already know counties cannot handle the mental health issues, the homelessness that's going on right now. We have this discussion almost weekly, and for sure monthly on this process. So yeah, being proactive to get that message to them. I know other counties are doing it. We need to do that also, but figuring out that funding to come along with this, because it's much needed. The intention of what they're trying to do, I think, is the right thing. I think we all agree with that. It's just coming with the funding to take care of it. That's going to be the challenge, and how that happens, I'm not sure. So yeah, prepared to, you know, the advocacy for Lake County is out there. You know, we've got the pilot program for the home hardening. We've got other things that are going on, but this is just another part of healing our community that we really need to get on board with. So I'm in full support of any type of letter or opportunity coming back, and then obviously CSAC and RCRC, you know, those will be conversations that need to be had as a whole. So in complete support of that coming back, whatever you need from me as a board member, I'm absolutely in support of it, because we're all dealing with it. I don't know anyone, maybe not, maybe I'm the only one, but these issues affect me personally. You know, I have family members that deal with it, and we need to find a way to help these folks in the right way, not in a stigmatism way, whether it's addiction, but it is all wrapped on self-medication for these mental health issues. And yeah, it hits home. So yeah, we got to do what we got to do here to get the funding to help us move these things forward. So in support of that, just wanted to make that very clear.
You're not alone, Supervisor Simon. You're not alone.
Oh, thank you, Supervisor Scott and Supervisor Simon. And as I mentioned earlier, this is a county issue. It's not just behavioral health services, because just this initiative alone, Care Court, it's going to affect other county entities, other county departments, and so I can certainly help. I would love that the Lake County Board of Supervisors would send some sort of a letter to the state, and I can help put that together, because we need to be heard. Because again, it's not just my department that's going to going to feel the pain of this.
Anita had her hand.
Ms. Grant?
If I might just add to this, and certainly Mr. Metcalf can correct me if I'm wrong, but this bill is looking at people who have what is known as severe mental illness, and that can include certainly psychotic disorders and schizophrenia spectrum. The resources in California are lacking in as far as those types of severe mental illnesses. The options for placement are difficult and sometimes impossible. We have people languishing in the jails now because even the state hospitals cannot take them to provide treatment when they're facing criminal sentences. The only other thing I would point out that this bill also allows the courts to impose a fine on the county of $1,000 a day for failing to comply with its orders, which I have no doubt the county would make best efforts, but again, with the dearth of resources available, and certainly Mr. Metcalf knows that full well in terms of options that are available for people who are in grave need.
Thank you, Ms. Grant. Maybe I neglected to mention that part, that there are sanctions involved, not only to the county, but even the folks that are in this program as well. And yes, it's a significant amount of money if this doesn't, if the client isn't being successful.
Supervisor Sabatier?
And Ms. Grant brought up something that I was meaning to talk about as well, and that's state hospitals. We are not getting any help, and maybe some of our letters need to be directed specifically about what our needs are from state hospitals. I believe 10 to 15% of our inmates are incompetent or incapable to stand trial. I don't know what the exact acronym is that the state uses for that, but I know that was part of the meeting that I had with the Sacramento judge. And that's across the board because we don't have beds for these people, and jail is not the correct or appropriate alternative for them to be in. That does not convey treatment, that does not convey successful outcomes. So I think that there's different aspects that we can discuss in our letters, and different groups or departments of the state that we can submit those letters to.
Ms. Grant?
I would just say in comment to Supervisor Sabatier that the Superior Court's being quite watchful and responsive to those issues with state hospital to the point of even sanctions. So, I mean, efforts are being made, but it doesn't reduce the size of the issue when it comes to finding placement for people in need.
Thank you. Any other comments from the board? Well, Todd, thank you. So, we understand you have a meeting you have to get into as well, so.
It's all
well, it sounds like the board wants to support you in doing what we can to ensure our position with this initiative and this bill. So,
as always, I appreciate the board's support, and I'll keep you posted.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a quick question for Director Metcalf. I pulled a lot of your items today.
Yeah, I heard 1 o'clock.
I just wanted to kind of check in. I don't know what your meeting schedule is, and I'd hate to take over one of the other meetings. Just kind of curious what the right time would be.
1 o'clock will be fine. I've already been in touch with my staff because I'm going to need some help with some of those.
All right. Okay. So, yeah, about 1, we'll go through those.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So with that, we'll move on to our 6.4, our public hearing before the Board of Supervisors regarding a notice of nuisance in order to abate for 5145 West Highway 20, Upper Lake, California, and Blue Lakes. And this is code enforcement, or actually Community Development Director, but also I see Code Enforcement Manager Marcus Beltramo here. So, and I think if you're here on behalf of this item, we need to ensure that everybody is sworn in. Am I correct? Is that assumption? All right. And if you're on Zoom and you are a party to this item on the agenda, if you can at least try to turn your camera on, or just specify that you will be swearing in when Johanna conducts the swearing in.
If I may, Mr. Chair, they're probably going to have to raise their hand, or else there's no interaction that we're going to see from them, so that we can go ahead and at least allow them to speak verbally or turn on their video.
Yes, and Chairman Crandall, any users that are participating by phone can press *9 to raise their hand, just in case.
Thank you, Matthew.
I guess I could do that now. So if you're here for this item and you want to be sworn in with your right hand raised, do you solemnly swear that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, good morning to the board. We come here before this board today for a different situation. Usually we come before an abatement has occurred, and then we request a lien to be recorded on a property. This situation here today that we come before the board is an action was taken and a request for a hearing was made. That's commonly more known as an appeal. So they're appealing a code enforcement action. The property in question here is 5145 West State Highway 20, Upper Lake, California. It's also known as the Blue Lakes area. Pursuant to the county code, once a notice of nuisance in order to abate is issued, a request may be filed to request a hearing within 21 days. The notice of nuisance in order to abate was issued on June 1st, 2022, and a request for a hearing was made on June 6, 2022, so it was made in a timely manner. As always, we'd like to provide context and kind of give everybody a description and a full understanding of the property in question here. The property is zoned, has a zoning designation of R1. That's for a single-family residential dwelling. The property is about 0.63 acres approximately. There is no primary structure on the property. There are located or situated on the property 2 accessory structures, more commonly known as pergolas. These are just a structure with 4 beams, kind of a roof, kind of with a shade cloth over top. One of the pergolas has been existing for more than a year, and a second pergola was recently constructed on the subject property. It is a beach area, and it does have fractionalized ownership. Fractionalized ownership means there's more than one person with an interest or ownership in the property. From what I could determine, there's about 23 according to county records. Now, there may be more or less. As I've come across, it seems like more people may have interest. It just may not be recorded, or I was not able to identify it via county records. Again, just so we can have some context, you can see Highway 20 there, and you can see the highlighted subject property there, and you can see it's directly located next to Blue Lake. And here, just for another picture, another frame of reference, here's a site from Google Earth, just to kind of give you some context there. These are the property owners that we could identify. I'm not going to go through all their names, obviously. We did make a good faith attempt to reach out and notify them, the property owners, of this action, and notify them that a request for a hearing was made and that they did have due process rights and they could participate and provide their input. We sent that out in a letter, let them know they could also participate via Zoom. So let's just get into the facts. On May 17, 2022, a complaint was received alleging a new and second structure is going to be built. The allegation goes further that the structure will block and property owners' views of the lake and quite possibly lower property values. Just for full information, a first complaint was received in May of 2021. That initial complaint alleged the property is a beach property where no structures are allowed. Appears that construction of a structure is about to occur based on material delivery and activity on the property. On May 23rd, 2022, it became aware to us a new and second structure was constructed and erected on the property, measuring about 88 square feet. It's 11 feet by 8 feet, 8 feet high, 8.5 feet high.
Just a quick clarification, is that May 3rd, 2022, or was that a year before?
That was the first complaint that we received in 2021, so that date is correct.
And that's for the first pergola, or was that for the second one being constructed?
So that was the first complaint that we received, and I believe that was for the first pergola that was erected or constructed. I don't have any knowledge how long the pergola was actually there, but I can definitively say it was there for at least a year, if not longer.
It just says that construction material is delivered.
So I don't have the exact date on me, but we were out there around this time last year. So the pergola was fully constructed at the time we did a site visit in 2021. I don't have the exact month, but it would have been somewhere around this time last year, maybe even into August.
Okay.
So here's a photo of the pergolas in question, or the structures that are the subject of today's hearing. On the left, you can kind of see, I believe that's the first pergola that was erected. And you can see this, it's got a shade cloth that provides, it was conveyed to us that they use it for shade at the beach area. And here is a photo of the new pergola next to the existing pergola. We also we thought it was best to get a photo from the back side of the pergola facing out over Blue Lake, so that way the complaint alleged that it's blocking the view. And so we took a picture to give a frame of reference so the board can take that into consideration. And again, just another view. On the right there is kind of a measurement tool that we use. It's not an accurate measurement tool, but it does give an estimate showing it's about 8 foot across. I also wanted to bring these photos to the attention of the board. Usually when it comes to real property, you look at method of attachment. It was conveyed to us that the structure is movable or could be considered temporary. Basically, it's my understanding that they can unscrew the screws, pull them out, and then if need be, they could lift the pergola up and actually move it. In this photo right here, you can see there is a foundation or a footing, and you can see that they are screwed in there. So I don't, I guess the interpretation here is that considered movable or temporary. My building official would probably say that's permanent construction. That'd be his opinion. On June 1st, 2022, the property was cited for being in violation of the following county codes.
Can I interrupt real quick?
Please.
Is that the building official's opinion?
That's the understanding I have from him, that once you screw it in there, that's not really temporary.
So it's not what you believe he would say. He actually has said that.
He said that, and I'm paraphrasing what he said, the summary of the conversation I had. Those are screwed in. He did make the comment that they can be easily unscrewed out, but it's not like, it was described to us that they would have a slot, pergola would go over a pier, and there'd be a pin put in, and that would affix it to the footing or the foundation, and then that pin could easily be removed, and they could pick it up. Those pictures there are different than what was described, or my understanding of what was going to occur. They are actually, the footing or the piers or the, I'm sorry, it's the bracket is actually screwed into and connected to the pergola. It's my opinion that that would constitute what would be a permanent structure, because it is, when you screw it in, that's for a permanent affixing, a permanent solid connection. And my understanding from my building official in the conversation is that would be the case also. But the building official also made the comment that the screws could be easily unscrewed and pulled out.
Ms. Grant?
This is certainly relaxed from an evidentiary standpoint, but that is complete hearsay. So I think if your board has questions with regard to what the building official's opinion is, you should call the building official down to testify. And I'm not taking issue with the code enforcement manager's recitation, just simply that it doesn't really have the evidentiary value for your board to rely upon.
All right. He's probably tuned in, so if he would like to.
I'm not sure what his status is. I'm sure we could probably accommodate if need be.
All right. Well, I'll look for his name, and if he raises his hand or whatever, we'll see if we can add that too. But
And I'll go on with my presentation. I'm sure somebody's up there is listening, and they'll notify them. The first violation that we cited was, well, actually, it's kind of reverse order. The first violation is that the structure was constructed or erected in violation of the primary zoning designation. Again, the property is for a single-family residential home. There is no primary structure on the property. You have to meet that first prong before you can have accessory structures or accessory uses. So if you don't meet that first prong, you don't get the second prong, which is the accessory structure or the accessory use. Second, we've cited them for failing to obtain a zoning clearance. So let's just say that the structure is allowed to be there. If it is allowed to be there, it would require a zoning clearance, not a building permit, only a zoning clearance, and that was not obtained. It should be noted that also any building are pursuant to Chapter 21 of the Lake County Code, Article 61, Section 61.4, Subdivision B, any building or structure erected, constructed, altered, enlarged, converted, moved, or maintained contrary to the provisions of Chapter 21, and any use of the lands or the buildings operated or maintained contrary to the provisions of Chapter 21 are declared to be public nuisances. And before, I kind of recited it already in the first paragraph, but the actual section, there is 2 code sections that declare this, or would deem this to be declared a public nuisance. One is the first one I referenced. The second is Chapter 13, Article 1, Section 13-3.1E5. So just to reiterate, a violation of the zoning code is declared to be a public nuisance by the county code. On June 6, 2022, a nuisance abatement hearing request was received. The reason given was as follows. The issue has been addressed last year and was resolved to allow our pergola to stay. The property owners voted to build a second pergola. We were given written permission by the Lake County Code Enforcement to do so. We are asking for shade on our property for those medical conditions and families. Our neighboring property has been granted the rights we are seeking. We just want the same privilege. Recommendation at this time, Code Enforcement's recommendation is that the Board of Supervisors deny the hearing request of Zeb Hendricks and to uphold, Zeb Hendricks is the person who filed the hearing request. And direct the property owners to voluntarily remove the structures and if necessary, direct staff to move forward with the abatement process for the structure. That is our recommendation, and I just saw that the chief building official has entered the room, and...
So I'll go ahead and Mr. Collins. Yes, please.
I heard you guys talking up there about the structure. I didn't hear the whole thing, so...
If you would like to reiterate.
So I can fill in.
Yes, you would need to be sworn in real briefly. Thank you,
Okay,
Johanna.
with your right hand raised, do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thanks.
All right.
So what was the question? Something to do with if this is temporary or permanent, in my interpretation of that?
Yes.
Okay, so my interpretation when I was talking to Marcus is, one, I'm very concerned about, if you're going to call it temporary, then temporary needs to be flush to the ground. We can't have stuff sticking up out of the ground that's part of the structure, and then you're going to remove part of the structure, and you're going to leave a footing there that's sticking up out of the ground, and then also having the post base sticking up out of the ground because it's a hazard. I don't think the code specifically says, that you can't have a post base sticking up out of the ground and a little piece of concrete, but they do have stuff that's in parallel, like the minimum size of a stair tread is 4 inches because it's a tripping hazard. So basically, they don't want you just, the grass grows up a little taller there and some kids are running through there and somebody falls down on it. Now we got somebody that maybe tripped on it, maybe bust their head on it. We could have a fatal injury out there. My personal opinion is that, my interpretation as a chief building official is that if you want to call it permanent, or temporary, that would have to be somehow flush to the ground with maybe like a hole that a plug could be put in, a cap or something like that, and a post could go into there. But as soon as you have something that's remaining sticking up there, it is not a temporary structure anymore. It is a permanent footing that's there. So in my opinion, it's not a temporary structure. Does anybody have any questions?
Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, you need anything else from me, Marcus?
No, I appreciate it.
No problem. Have a nice day.
Thank you. there anything else you would like?
That concludes our presentation and our facts that were obtained during this situation.
Any questions from the board? Supervisor Pyska?
Yeah, the violations from last year, were they resolved? How did that happen?
So for full information and disclosure, we did go out to the property last year. This was before I was promoted to my current position as manager of the Code Enforcement Division. There was a predecessor, a different management or a different person in that decision-making capacity. I went out there with this individual. We assessed the situation, and they made the determination that the structure was temporary or movable. Therefore, it wasn't considered a permanent structure located or situated on the property. Again, going back to the situation, it was my understanding there'd be a pin put in and they could move it. And if they could move it from the property, then it would be considered a permanent structure and therefore wouldn't require any type of permitting or zoning clearances.
All right, Supervisor Sabatier?
So this is, in my opinion, I'm a little conflicted on all of this because I just don't see how those pergolas are possible in an R1, but at the same time, it looks really nice. So how do we figure out how to allow this? And so I was looking at different, like, is it possible to rezone? I don't know, because accessory to a structure requires, as you stated, a structure, and it's an R1. And if we say yes to this, and that means every R1 could suddenly build sheds, can suddenly build outhouses, could suddenly build whatever they want, and that's exactly why we say it's an accessory to the structure and not allow those types of things to happen. I'd love to find a way to make this possible because those pictures look really nice, and I appreciate the picture from the back end to look towards the lake, like it is not obstructing the view. I was looking at open space district. Unfortunately, it requires to be 90 acres, so that's not possible, but it kind of fits that area where it says you open it up for almost like a park environment for fishing, things like that. But I don't know what the answer is, but I want to find a way to make this possible. It looks really nice. To me, that's permanent. I agree with the opinion of our chief building official, especially, I mean, I could build a deck and unscrew my deck. That doesn't make my deck temporary. So I just, it's to me, just unscrewing something does not mean that it makes it temporary. But it can't possibly happen as is in an R1. And we cannot possibly, I feel we cannot possibly set up this precedent that this is going to be possible in an R1. I wish there wasn't 23 plus or minus owners, because maybe one of the adjacent properties can absorb that property, and now there is a structure, and that makes it allowable. That's one of the ideas I have in my head, but with 23 owners, I just don't know how that makes it possible at all. So I don't know what the answer is, but let's figure out a way to make this possible because it looks really nice, especially in that environment right around adjacent to Blue Lakes.
So just to chime in on that, the possible ways to rectify the situation and bring it into compliance is, one, a rezone. Two, there is precedence in this county for a special zoning exception. Although I could not locate it in this county code, it has been something that has been done in the past and was part of an older version of the county code. And then variance, they could go through the variance process, but again, that requires submitting applications, going through the review process with our planning division.
Supervisor Simon?
Yeah, this one, yeah, figuring it out. The thing I have the questions about is, you said a couple of different things. Obviously, you weren't in the position when it was first approved to be there, at least in the position that you're setting in now. But really, the conversation comes down to whether it's a permanent structure or a movable structure. So I hear your definition of the R1, but from the county standpoint, we had already approved it. If it would have been put together like the way that was described to you, a hole with a pin that went through it, we wouldn't be probably sitting here today. Correct? I mean, because it was already approved at one point, and if they would have built it if they had put the 2nd one up in the same manner that wasn't a permanent structure, we probably wouldn't be sitting here today. That's what I'm getting from, because you had already approved it at one point, or the department had approved it at one point.
So let me clarify. There was no formal approval process. There was no review by our planning division. There was no review by our building division. This was a decision solely made by the decision maker and the decision-making capacity for the code enforcement unit. That is who gave approval or allowed the situation to persist. My opinion is, if I was in my position last year, based on the way it was described to me with the PIN, I would probably be still of the same opinion that I am here today.
So you still have that same opinion? If they didn't have any footing and it was just built flat to the ground,
again,
if there was no footing, would your opinion change at that point?
So that's speculation. It does have a footing. It did have a footing at the time. And based upon those facts at that time, I would be of the same opinion I am here today. If we wanted to go into situational theory and say that there wasn't a footing and it was flat on the ground, and that was the opinion of my building official, and also I would work in conjunction with our planning division and my director, and if they were of that opinion, I would go with that opinion.
And what I'm working to in the questions, you know, I understood your opinion and those types of things, is always looking for a solution when we're trying to do this. You know, so just please know that's where my questions are, of not who made the decision or whatever. You did talk about the opportunity for a variance.
So if I could opine a little further on that, going to your I guess your issue here. You are correct. The property, in my opinion, is not properly zoned. It's not an R1 property. It's not a buildable property. I believe there's also one other condition that needs to be brought to the board's attention, that I have seen paperwork where they're in the grant deed. It does have express written statements that no structure is allowed to be built or erected. My opinion is that this property needs to be zoned appropriately. I think the residents they enjoy their beach area. I think it's something that enhances the community. I think it also affects property values, because that is part of their property that they bought. They have a house and they have the right to this beach, so it does affect property values. So if there was a straightforward solution that was available, I would be all for it. Unfortunately, we're stuck with the written word of the code, and I think we need to, the way I would look at this is, when I make decisions, we have to look with future implications. And bad decisions made in the past affect future issues. And so rather than resolving this issue last year, we're now dealing with this year. And so this community has gone through this 2 years in a row. So we have to try to get these decisions right. We have rules that we live by, and I think we need to live by those rules, because that's how the system works effectively. But again,
I think there's always ways, thank you for your preaching to me, but there's always ways to work around things, you know, as a property owner, because when you show those pictures there, when you talk about it's your opinion that could affect property value, that may improve property value from somebody who says, boy, that's nice. I have a place where I can go down by the lake, I can sit, I can spend time with my family in the shade. So that's another opinion that you have, that it could affect property value. Someone has said that, but is there any, you know, any proof to back that up?
There is no empirical information.
Yeah, so, you know, that's an opinion. So just asking those questions, always trying to find a solution. Yep, there is no doubt, black and white, written down law, you know, rules and regulations. But this is an opportunity, I think, it's something like this that we could try and find a way or a path forward for the folks. At least those are my thoughts on it. If, you know, it was a structure, when you showed that picture that just, you know, destroyed the area, looked, you know, it was a bad situation, but, you know, the tables were there, needs a cover if you're going to sit there and spend it with the family. Blue Lakes is a beautiful area. A lot of folks come up and visit it. So, so those are just some of my questions. I'll hear more from the other board, but.
And I do want to make sure, I agree with that. And we try to be more, this code enforcement unit is more of a hybrid. It's facilitative and traditional. And I think the facilitative route is always the first option we try to go to. I do want to clarify something. I did offer my own opinions here today, but the determinations here were substantiated by fact.
Thank you.
On the property value?
No, for the...
'Cause that was my
I'm sorry, for the violations. But yes, the opinion of property value, you are correct. There's no information to back that up.
Okay.
Vice Chair Scott.
I think for today, this item's very clear. The structure goes against code. I think the property owners need to be working with community development to figure out what they can do to change the zoning or something else to be able to move forward. But today, it's very clear the structure needs to come down.
Supervisor Pyska.
Yeah, I think the variance process or the zoning change process is probably the route to go, or they could plant shade trees and have a place to sit in the shade there. I can't be out in the sun, so I get it.
And so with a rezone, we do 4 a year when it comes to county, right? Is that, or was that, no?
That's general
That's
plan.
general plan amendment.
Got it, okay. Sorry about that.
So, but if you had a recommendation, which one would you recommend to them, the variance or the rezone?
So from my understanding from speaking to individuals in our planning division, the variance is not a sure thing.
Okay.
There's a lot of hurdles in that process, and it's not guaranteed that they would get the result that they desire. The rezone is probably the best option for them.
And for the longevity of the property, to have it correctly zoned.
Yes, and again, the property, the zoning of the property is the bigger issue here that needs to be addressed. It speaks to a bigger issue within the county where there's a lot of properties that are not zoned appropriately, and it does not allow our citizens to use the property as it would probably be most suitable for them and in the best interest of the county.
Supervisor's response, or Ms. Grant.
Just to be clear, a variance is essentially a request for relief from strict application of zoning regulations, usually on the basis that to enforce them would create an unusually difficult hardship on a property, on a particular property. So it's normally something that one property would be subjected to that like properties would not be. So its application would be probably questionable.
Okay.
Supervisor Sabatier, did you have?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, is this only available, this property accessible to adjacent properties, or is it accessible to anyone from the public that happens to walk on it, put their boat on the beach and hang out at the tables?
So the property is gated. The only access points would be through I believe it's Mid-Lake, I could be wrong as the street name, and then through a gate area where you walk down, Irvine, sorry. So as you can see, it's a flag lot. The access point is there at the street level going in. The only way to access the property would be via the lake. And it is fenced off all the way around.
I'm David Eby, one of the property owners of the beach. There's only 15 owners, not 23.
You have to,
Yes,
Is it open to public yet?
we're not open yet, so we're just going to let him finish.
Clarify.
You can in a second, just let him finish and then we'll let you come up. Go ahead.
So it is not open to the public, and I understand majority of these properties in here are zoned R1. The only property I can identify that's not zoned R1 is the beach resort to the just north of that, right next to it on the right-hand side. That is I believe it's its own commercial resort. But this property here, to answer your question directly, is not open to the public. I believe you have to have a key to access the property.
Okay. And I guess my question was more along the lines of permitted structure, unpermitted structure. I know it's probably below the square footage. I think our square footage maximum is 120 or 160. I forget what exactly the square footage is for building a accessory structure that does not require a permit. But this one you said was 88 square feet.
88 square feet approximately. But again, 120 is the cutoff line between whether a building permit is required or not required.
And does it matter if you build 10 buildings that are underneath that? Or does it matter how much square footage of unpermitted buildings you have?
My understanding is the structure itself, as long as it does not exceed the 120 square feet parameters, then a building permit is not required.
And the reason I ask is I think they're well-built from the pictures that I saw, but I also know from having built some of these in the past, they're heavy. And so making sure that they're well-constructed, if they're going to be, maybe it's not to the public, but it's to different people who have access at different times to make sure that they are well-built.
And I'd just like to chime in on what the building official said. He did say that when you do remove the pergola, the footings are there, and those are a safety or a trip hazard.
Absolutely, I don't disagree with them. Okay.
All right, so I'll open it up to the public, and I think Ms. Grant, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Chair. I believe that this is one of the owners. He may be one of the people who's filed this request for hearing. So in that case, they stand as an appellant.
Okay. So the owners stand as the appellant as of right, okay, got it, okay.
So can I be an appellant? Can I speak?
Yes, it's open to the public now, so.
I'll go for it. What you're looking at in that little, it looks like a 7. The bottom of the 7, you see some houses that are in the little triangle in the lower right corner. There's 56 lots there, 44 homes. They have beach access to that. Of those 56 lots, there's 15 of us that are owners of that beach. Not everybody has ownership, just 15, not 23. Some, when the houses changed ownership, there's 2 deeds. And sometimes that second deed didn't get processed. So the original owner might be from 1960. Could be different, but there's only 15 owners. The people to the left of that is Villa Blue. There's 22 homes there. Their beach is right next to our beach, which is highlighted, and theirs is not highlighted. They're also gated, just like ours is gated. They also have a structure on there. They're zoned R1, yet there's no conflict there. And theirs is a much larger than the 120 square feet, but there's no conflict there. And ours, when you go down to the beach, I can't be out in the sun. I'm one of the ones that, yes, I got melanoma. Yes, I have stage 4 cancer. I can't be out on our beach in the sun without the pergolas. I can't be on the beach unless I carry an umbrella with me. And these are very nice structures. They're well built. We were told that they didn't need to be permitted. I knew we were zoned R1, but I thought since next door had them, I did not contest. We came before the board many, many, many years ago and under public comment, and we were told, just go ahead. But we couldn't get a consensus of builders in our group. The other group did. So I'm very conflicted as a property owner to hear that they got to come down. Those don't have to come down. Give us time to, if we're going to have to do a rezoning, give us, if you're going to say it takes 3 years to get a rezone, give us 3 years. We won't build any more structures. But don't make us take down the structures that are there. They're well built. If you move them, unscrew them, and move them somewhere, and they're not attached to the ground, we get high winds on Blue Lakes. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the area, but those could blow over and hurt somebody. With them anchored where they are, they're safe. They're well constructed. You can see through them. The property owners behind us are the ones that may be complaining. But they have a clear view of, if we all stood up there, shoulder to shoulder, yeah, we're going to block their view, but these are, you can see around them, see through them. But I am for us keeping the structures. I'm hoping that you can see that a mistake was made in the past, zoning at R1. It shouldn't have been that. It should have been whenever they broke up Blue Lakes Resort, and then they subdivided up the properties, they separated out the 2 beaches. one for Villa Blue, one for Blue Lakes Resort subdivision, it should have been rezoned then as beach property, the same as all the resorts, because we're using it as a recreational area. And with that, that's basically all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
What's your name, sir?
David Eby.
David Eby, yeah.
Yes, please state your name for us.
Hi, Zeb Herrings. I'm the president of the Blue Lakes Beach Association. And first off, thank you. I built both of those, so it's nice to know that they look good. I was going to go into the story of why I built it, but Dave did a pretty good job as far as like the safety from the sun. I have a 3-year-old daughter. She helped build both of those with me. So for me, it's more of a family and friends type atmosphere. When I built the first one on April 28th of 2021, I built it kind of to resemble the one next door, because that's how I assumed they had it, we could have it. So I built it. Started the process with Marcus. He's been great through emails, corresponding back and forth. That kind of resolved around October, and then we decided in our beach meeting to build the second one, which is the further one in the back picture. And I contacted Marcus through email and said, hey, we're getting ready to build the second one. Haven't heard anything from the first one. What can we do? And he said, oh, and we also got a permit to do some beach reclamation from Fish and Game. So I said, hey, Marcus, we're doing that. What can we do? And he said, no permit needed. You're good to go. I said, all right, we're going to build pretty much exactly the same one. And he said, yep, no permit. So from our standpoint, we were good to go. So we built it. About the footings, sorry, I talk really fast. The first one, I put the footings in the ground because of the high winds, did not want it to blow over. They came out and inspected it. We actually moved the pergola to show them it was movable. They said it's good to go. Put it back, secure it so it's not a hazard. So we did that. But he said don't put the footings in the ground because then it's considered a permanent structure. So on the second one, I actually just set them on top of the ground so they could be moved back and forth. Working with them, trying to make it work. I didn't know what else to do. That's kind of where we're at right now. Our neighbors behind us have a 6-foot cyclone fence full of ivy with pergolas over their deck, so their view is very minimal, and ours pergolas really don't obscure their view. You can look right through them. The one next door is, like Dave was saying, 20 feet by 10 feet, well outside of the building permit requirements. It is considered a structure, not a building, which code enforcement kind of reiterated. In our original deed, it does say no buildings. In the same sentence, no buildings and no commercial buildings. I think the intent was they didn't want to build a resort on the property. They wanted to keep it like a park. So we kind of went with those guidelines. Any questions? Or I don't know if it is a question. I don't know.
No, it's not a question, but a comment. Thanks for the clarification too on the second footing, because they do look different. So the second box footings you have set in there, they're not in the ground, they're just setting on top and you attach to that.
Correct.
So
I
instead of
scratched the
buying
surface so the
block-
grass wouldn't grow up through it. So it's bare dirt, but yeah, they're sitting on top. The first ones only go down about 6 inches, and it was just for weight to hold them down with our high winds.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, come on up, sir. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Nick Summerfield. I own 4 properties in addition to a part ownership in the beach. As Dave said, there's 15 of us owners. But I just wanted to kind of clarify, we've worked with the county in doing this all along. In fact, I was present at the time that the first one, we had the inspection. At that time, the county officials both looked at them, observed the pergola on the beach next to us, and we asked them, are these okay? It's non-permanent, looks like. I even asked during the conversation, would it make a difference if we put wheels on them? And everybody chuckled and said, well, you don't need to do that, but you do need to secure it in case of wind damage, whatever. So we have been working along, and there's talk about, well, I don't think we're stuck. I heard the gentleman say we're stuck. I think you guys have an opportunity here to really bring about the change, long-term change, as Ms. Scott said. We need a variance so that we can, because several years ago, I talked to the officials about having it rezoned, and they discouraged me because of the length of time that it would take to do that. And that was unrelated to this pergola, but we just thought that we wanted it in some kind of formal, legal zone. And as Dave said, we all know it's R1. That was done years and years ago. So I think the board has an opportunity here to give us a variance and allow us the time to put in, to have it rezoned. The or the beach owners, as a beach owner, we appointed Zeb to handle all this for us. But we have, investments right now into it. We've all got to pay for Zeb all the materials. You saw, it's beautiful. And I've heard also that people have concerned about the views of the property owners. The property owners for this beach, I don't think it really clearly shows it, is not adjacent to the beach. There is a whole subdivision between these property owners and the beach. That's why that flag shape, and that's why on the owners in the deed, we gave all 56, Dave, or?
56 lots.
All 56 lots, we gave them access. So our neighborhood, it's the neighbor thing to do. We own a beach, 15 of us, but we don't want to restrict our neighbors in that subdivision. So they all have deeded access. Now, we can change that if we need to, based on the board's decisions, but to us, we're a good neighbor, and we work with the county. We got their approval, so in some cases, this could be considered within the state an estoppel issue, where we got the okay, we got the clearance, we move forward. So I'm asking you just to look at change. I mean, it's a health issue now, and our aging population. We can't go down there and sit. Yesterday, it was 118 degrees in the direct sunlight. Do you want to sit out there without a pergola? And it'll take 15 years to plant a tree. If we plant trees along there, that's a long-term solution. And I don't think that the people directly adjacent to the beach would like that solution at all, because then they wouldn't be able to see the lake at all. So we're trying to work with everyone. We're just asking that in this case, maybe a variance and with the stipulation that we submit and go through the rezoning issue, and not destroy and take down the things. Like last night, there was, I think, 6 kids. Those kids can't stay out in the sun. Their parents have to take them back in, and if you'll notice, they're constructed over tables so that they can sit down, take a break, and be out of the sun. Thank you.
Waiting for.
Okay. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak on this item?
People have said it all.
If you would like to come back up briefly and state one last thing, go ahead.
This is just a yes or no answer. Does this board have the authority to put a stay on a temporary stay on the abatement order until we can get things rearranged and then come back again? Say, I hate to say this, in the winter, but right now in the summer to take down these, it's a great health issue.
Ms. Grant? Yeah.
Your board can determine to defer enforcement. Your board can give direction, for example, that the parties meet and confer to see if there is a solution that would be acceptable under current regulation. Your board has many choices here.
Thank you. Are there any other public, anyone from the public who want to speak on this before I close it and bring it back to the board? Okay, Supervisor Spati. I'll close up public input. Supervisor Spati.
Pardon the interruption, but we do have a couple of hands in the Zoom room.
That's right. Sorry, I can't close it without letting them speak. So I have call-in user 1. You have your hand up. If you can unmute. Star 6, if you could press that, it'll... So we'll go to Lance. Lance, I see you're unmuted. If you can go ahead and state your name for the record and you can state your opinion or your input, sorry.
Yes, thank you. Lance Williams, Loch Lomond. I was here for something else, but I caught this one. It's very interesting. There's going to be temporary structures coming up in cannabis as well. And I was looking at this, and I think that one of the gentlemen who has these temporary structures had said that it had been approved at one point in time. And I have seen and talked to other building officials in the last 7 years and stuff, and it is definitely up for interpretation. And I understand if you were to put those 4x4s directly into the cement, that could be one interpretation as being fully in place forever. And then there's the pins on the top. But I think they brought up some really good points, and I think that this is up for interpretation, and they look really nice. So it's just something that caught my eye. And I think that, again, talking to other building officials, that there can be, this could be a temporary structure for sure. I think the safety of having one of those things fly off is it's something to really consider here. And it's just really fascinating here. So thank you for taking the time to look at that. But again, I think temporary structures throughout the county, there has to be some definitions so they are not interpreted. I do agree with the building official, once that structure is removed though, if it was poured into the ground, you'd have to be able to do something about that. So thank you for taking the time.
Thank you. Call-in user, were you able to?
Susan has a comment.
Susan, go ahead.
Hi, yes. I would just recommend that we also swear in those that are in, just in case they weren't here or available to be sworn in earlier.
Lance, if you're still, yes, thank you. And call-in user, if you, yeah, there you go. If you can swear in with Johanna, please.
I don't know that they can unmute yet.
Yeah.
I believe I'm unmuted.
Yeah, he's unmuted, and call-in user is in table 2, so I don't know what we're going to do with that. So, but yeah, if we could just go ahead and.
Okay. All right, with your right hand raised, do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do. I swear.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lance, for coming back and doing that. And Donna has sworn also, and I think that's the probably call-in user. Donna Mikewitz. Yep, I think so. Press *6 and you'll be able to unmute. Okay.
Mr. Chair, if Donna is in fact the call-in user, and I don't know that we can confirm that, but Donna did enter a written comment in the chat, just for your awareness.
Okay. All right. So it looks like we're going to have trouble getting this call-in user unmuted, so from that, we'll just go ahead and close. If you, call-in user, can send something, we can attach it to, like an email or something, we can attach it to this comment for this item. So I'll close public input. Supervisor Sabate, you had your pen up.
Wondering if we can read Donna's comments, and she did swear in and submit a comment.
She wrote something right here. It says, as a property owner with a lot in the Clear Lake Oaks Key zoned R1 with no interest in building a home on the lot, but keep it as a shoreline nature enhancement. If this is accepted as allowable with no permits, variances, rezoning, I and others would most likely be interested in pergola installations. I interpret county code no permanent structures as no permanent structures. Cementing into the ground is a permanent structure, I thought. I agree with Director Beltramo. Donna Mikewitz, my sound is not working. She swears in also. That was the call-in user. Vice Chair Scott?
I think.
Oh.
So I just wanted to correct myself. I had said that I was just looking for solutions. That open zone was 90 acres, but that's only for federal and state lands. For county lands, it's 6,000 square feet at 0.63 acres. That's more than 6,000 square feet. And one of the allowable uses is private recreation facilities of a passive nature, such as picnic areas, equestrian trails, bicycle paths, walking or jogging trails, which are permanently set aside as open space in any private development. I just feel like that covers exactly what we're looking at. There's no need for a variance. I was also looking, because it reminded me when reviewing our roadmap task force, there's a whole lot of tiny slivers of just boat ramps or boat docks, and those are zoned O as well. And so to me, that kind of fits the same basic concept of what's being attempted here. It's unfortunate that we do have a mishmash of, because I looked around in other places where there are only boat docks and it's R1, but we need to come to a place where it makes sense based on what the rules and regulations of a zone are. And I can't make this work in an R1, and even putting a variance now opens it up for everyone else to want to get that same variance. I think that would be my solution, is move forward and maybe within 30 days, submit an application for rezone. If that occurs, then we defer any enforcement action or any changes to occur on that property until that has either dropped and fallen through the cracks and nothing has happened, or has finalized and it has been brought to us for a rezone. That would be my suggestion on how to be able to move forward.
Sure, Scott.
I guess I'm just concerned that if we allow the structure to stay, this board has made other property owners remove structures that were temporary. So I think we're going to be setting ourselves up for a sticky wicket if we continue moving forward, allowing them to keep the structure. With this board here, sitting here, has made other property owners remove temporary structures from their property.
Any other comments? Supervisor Simon?
Yeah, you know, it's case by case every time something comes up, so I like the idea that Supervisor Sabate floated, you know, about the potential application for a rezone and giving them time to do that if that's the path they decide to go down. If they don't, that's a decision that they're making, but yeah, I think each instance that comes to us is, you know, a separate issue. Obviously, Blue Lakes isn't going anywhere. This is going to continue to move forward, and you know, it sounds like just through the conversations we're talking, you know, if they put a tiny home on that property of 320 square feet, that whole entire argument will go away. Now, I know that costs funds; those are types of things.
Sorry, no comment. Is that okay?
No.
Well, we closed public.
Yeah, we closed public comment, so maybe that isn't the case, but I know it was zoned for R1 for a property, right? So I don't see why you couldn't put a tiny home on there, but that isn't the conversation. Just made a comment, but I'd be willing to move forward with that proposal that Supervisor Sabate put forward if they're willing to move with it.
I'm curious if Zeb is an appellant or just open to public comment as an appellant.
Oh, okay, yes. If you would like to come up, since you're an appellant, I'll grant to that.
Maybe I was confused.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, just for clarification, it doesn't matter his status, you'd close the public hearing, but you can reopen it.
I'll just reopen it because just briefly so that we can move forward.
The tiny home did come up when we talked to Marcus and the building official that they came out, and in our deed it does say no buildings for occupancy. So we can't put a building on our property, only a structure like a pergola. So a tiny home would fall under that building aspect, so.
Thank you. And with that, I'll close public input back.
And then complicated.
I didn't know if, I know you were just giving an example.
You know, it just.
And so for me, I can agree to that. I think one of the things for me is that the community development prior to your service had given them and walked them along. I think that's what a lot of times we have to deal with in situations like this, is at one time or another, directors or managers or whoever's in charge have different guidance for the project person, and then later down the line it changes, and then we get into a position where there's a different interpretation or a different mandate. I've dealt with this numerous times, and there's others that will as well have the same type of, you know, statement that they've been told something at one time and now they're not allowed to. And so, but I think with this situation, I feel okay with giving them a specific timeline, correcting it, only because the county did give that guidance at one time. If there wasn't, then I wouldn't feel comfortable with that, but that's where I'm at with it as well. Did you want to add? Or?
Did we determine that one of the pergolas is a temporary because it's not in the ground and can be completely removed?
I think they were told that, right, by,
One of them's sitting on the grass, and the other one is in the ground. Is that right? No. Okay, no. I see. Never mind. I thought so the one on the left is you poured the cement on top of the ground.
I'll go ahead and open it back again because he's going to answer.
The one on the right was the first one, which was in the ground. It has holes through the supporting structure to pick it up and move it, which we did quite easily. The second one is the one that was sitting on the ground because I was told don't put it in the ground. That is a permanent structure. I was going to put holes through the second one to make it identical to the first one, but Marcus told me to stop all structural construction, so I did. So the second one is not complete, which is on the left. The first one on the right is essentially movable and was given permission.
All right, so I will close public input, hopefully, for here. Supervisor Sabatier?
I hope that in the future, we can have a conversation about what the description of temporary, because I've seen houses move. That doesn't mean that it's a temporary thing. So I think that I think that's a very murky area to dive into today. I think that there is a potential solution, but I think that we will need to dive into the conversation of what is the description of temporary versus permanent, because I see both of these as permanent in my opinion, but I'm not the chief building inspector, and we did get an opinion from the chief building inspector today. But I still think we can solve this without having to dive into those weeds.
All right. And so, anything else from the board? I know that we had a solution. You still want to move forward with that solution, possibly?
It was a suggestion. If there's a better options and they can file, but they need to, in my opinion, they need to file some kind of zoning change. If you have a better zone to offer, I don't want it to be stuck with just the option that I suggested, but I think it's an option of what can be done. But to say that 2 years later they filed, no, I think it needs to be done within a certain time frame, and let's get this process going. If that doesn't happen, then at that point, the request to take down the pergola would go into effect.
Ms. Grant?
Your board can always continue this hearing if you choose to, and allow the code enforcement staff to discuss with the property owners a solution and bring it back to your board within a time prescribed by your board so that you can ultimately take action, because a deferral just to allow opportunity for solution is usually set by some type of time frame. So I don't have to interrupt. Again, I would just say that the recommended action with regard to this matter is not to grant or deny the hearing request. I'm sure that's just a typo. The hearing request brought this before your board today. That's already been accomplished. So it would just be to grant or deny the appeal. If your board takes an option of just continuing the matter for a set period of time, you will do neither of those. You would just move to continue for a period of time you determine.
What time period are we thinking?
I'm thinking 30 days.
30 days.
What about Supervisor Scott?
What's that?
It's all good. Somebody else will be sitting here.
Yeah, how will that affect as well, though, if we only have 4? That won't affect anything?
If it comes back to you with only 4, there is no such thing as a tie vote. For your board, a tie vote is a denial.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. So.
I just caution bias. I think we're showing bias here, because if it was the cannabis, it wouldn't be going this direction. So I'm just putting it out there.
And I'll just say this, I disagree for the fact that we have not enforced very harshly against temporary structures. People have been drying since 2019, ever since the ordinance was put into effect, without having the appropriate structures through the permit process that we have. And the one that we did deny was by saying that there was absolutely 0 issues with unpermitted structures, and it had nothing to do with temporary or untemporary, because even temporary structures require a permit once you reach a certain size. So I don't think that this is an exact replica of something with an opposite direction.
All right, any other comments?
But I agree, it's very close.
All right, so 30 days, I know that do we need to vote on, how do we get, yeah, because I don't want to.
If you determine to continue it to allow time for a resolution, you would just set the time for the continuance, and to avoid having to renotice and publication costs, et cetera, your board could, if you choose, set it for a time and date certain at whatever period of time you're looking at to see what's going on.
Okay, so if we're talking 30 days, we're looking at August, and is everyone okay with that option?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm good with that,
All right,
yes.
Okay, so 30 days from today would be August 12th, which would be which date meeting?
Either the 9th or the 16th.
Let's go for the
16th.
16th. Johanna, does that seem like it'd be okay date? Sure.
And a time.
And a time? Mm-hmm. Let's do the, we'll do the 9:30.
And I got one suggestion. The property owners, they need to be working with the planning division as they're the experts in land use. And so any conversation would need to be with them. Code enforcement is not the expert in land use. We're expert in code enforcement issues with the assistance and opinion and support of our planning division.
Ms. Grant?
That's fine, if that's obvious, but that's fine.
Okay.
But it does have to be in the form of a motion, sir.
Okay. So it looks like we do need a motion for, is there anything else to add to this continuance? Not hearing any. Supervisor Simon?
No, just when you're ready, I'll try and put the motion together. Okay. Looks like you're ready. So, Mr. Chair, I'd like to move to continue this hearing to a date certain, which is August 16th at 9:30 a.m. And please ask the parties to meet and confer and hopefully come back with some options on this issue. So.
Second.
Do I have a motion and a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 4-1. And so we will address this item on August 16th in another hearing at 9:30. So we'll see you then.
Thank you.
And we're going to entertain a short break before we move on to the next item on the agenda. And so let's see what we have here, 11:11. Let's come back at 11:15 or 11:20. Let's just do 11:20. I think we are. Are we ready? Yeah. All right. Item 6.5, public hearing, sitting concurrently as Clear Lake Key CSA number 1, number 2, number 6, number 13, number 20, number 21, Board of Supervisors, Kelseyville County Waterworks District number 3, and Lake County Sanitation District Board of Directors. Consideration of A, resolution confirming collections of annual lighting fees. B, resolution confirming collections of delinquent water fees. C, resolution confirming collections of delinquent water and sewer fees. And D, resolution of delinquent sewer fees for Lake County Sanitation District. With that, I will give the floor to Director Scott Harder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Wow, the mic is hot. So this is a fairly routine thing. We see you annually typically for this. It's a public hearing. It's multiply pronged. One of the focuses is to establish the collection of the annual lighting fees. Those are not delinquent, but this action will place them on the tax roll for collection for the lighting districts that we manage. And then the other item is to address rolling delinquent water and sewer bills to the tax roll. So if you've got any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Oh, to note, we haven't received any protests to date, but we did have one phone call. A lady called in with questions about it, and staff was able to answer the questions.
All right, thank you, Scott. Are there any questions for Supervisor Sabatier?
I'll just ask my question publicly. I had asked approximately how much we would be looking at for the collections, wondering if you can provide an approximate amount.
Sure. We sent out letters. It was approximately $930,000 in delinquent water and sewer fees. We typically see about 80% of that goes forward to the tax roll. We usually get about 20%, so we're expecting about $750,000 will be rolled to the tax roll. For perspective, that's about 2.6% of our operating revenue, so not a large amount.
It's actually a pretty low percentage for delinquency, and when looking at your previous years that you were showing me just now, not very small. About 30% lower than previous year, and about the same as years past with 2019, 2018, and things like that. So I thought that was good information. Wanted to make sure and provide that.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate you bringing that.
All right. I will open it up for public input. Is there anybody in the chambers or on Zoom that would like to comment on this item? Hearing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Supervisor Sabatier.
One last question. Is there still any programs out there through the state or federal government to help pay for, I know specifically water was one of those things. I know that we advertise that. Is that still something that's available to people who might be finding themselves in delinquency?
There are private programs still available, yes, usually through NCOs. We are also looking at an option that is government funded, but would require us to essentially be the grant administrator. So Jesse actually had a meeting with the, I guess she would be the auditor-elect, Genevieve, last week on one of the programs that will provide a one-time payment of up to $2,000 for a late water bill. There's a lot of administrative overhead burden on that, so we're still contemplating the program, but if we can, provide that to our customers without too much burden on our staff, we're looking to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Did you want to add to that, Jesse? I was giving you a hard time. I said, do you want to add to that, Jesse? But you don't have to.
I think Scott covered it.
All right. I already opened it up to public input, so if there's not anything else, I think we can move forward with action.
We're just offering each one of the resolutions individually?
I think so.
All right, Mr. Chair, I will offer, thank you, resolution confirming collections of annual lighting fees.
Resolution has been offered.
Supervisor Simon?
Aye.
Supervisor Sabatier?
Aye.
Supervisor Scott?
Aye.
Supervisor Pyska?
Yes.
And Supervisor Crandall?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'll offer resolution confirming collections of delinquent water fees.
Resolution has been offered.
Supervisor Simon?
Yes.
Supervisor Sabatier?
Aye.
Supervisor Scott?
Aye.
Supervisor Pyska?
Yes.
And Supervisor Crandall?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'll offer the resolution confirming collections of delinquent water and sewer fees.
Resolution has been offered.
Supervisor Simon?
Yes.
Supervisor Sabatier?
Aye.
Supervisor Scott?
Aye.
Supervisor Pyska?
Yes.
And Supervisor Crandall?
Yes.
Thank you.
D will be I'll offer a resolution of delinquent sewer fees for Lake County Sanitation District.
Resolution has been offered.
Okay, Supervisor Simon?
Yes.
Supervisor Sabatier?
Aye.
Supervisor Scott?
Aye.
Supervisor Pyska?
Yes.
And Supervisor Crandall?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes item 6.5. And we thank you for your presentation on that and for your help.
All right, thank you very much.
Take care. Have a good day. We will move on to our non-timed items, and it looks like we'll start with 7.5, discussion of next steps to fill the role of District 4 Supervisor to be vacated by Tina Scott, July 31st, 2022. Consideration of a resolution setting an election for District 4 Supervisor as part of the November 8th, 2022 statewide general election. And I think this is Ms. Grant.
Well, it is. I think I should make clear that although I edited that page-and-a-half memo to your board, I didn't draft it.
Okay, sorry.
All right, so it originally had 3 departments, and I see I'm standing alone, which is fine. But there is still a lot of acknowledgement that has to go on here with regard to the work of other departments. Certainly, admin had provided a great deal of work in terms of what other jurisdictions were doing with regard to putting such vacancies before the voters or not. And certainly the elections department, the registrar of voters, between the current registrar and the prior registrar, brought decades of experience to all of this. What I do want to draw your attention to is something that was unfortunately added late to the agenda, which is 5 pages that I wrote, which I hope you have, which talks about what your options are. I should say that on those that page and a half, although I say I edited it, I did not do a very good job because I missed the very last line that made it seem as if there was only one possible outcome. And that is not the case. You'll see from my memo that I believe your board has 2 choices. Neither one is perfect. However, I think there's a viability to both of them. And if you wade through all of the distinctions in terms of the type of election, one of the most notable here is that the courts have deemed it a special election. Despite the fact it occurs at the same time and place as the next general election in November, it is nonetheless itself has the character as a special election, and that allows for certain abbreviated timeframes. However, in order to put it before the voters in a timely fashion, there is an issue because the office is not vacant until the end of this month. Now, 1770 has been cited, in fact, used by some jurisdictions, but 1770 does not apply to counties. I've researched that thoroughly. I will say that with a certainty. It does not apply to counties. An office is not considered vacant at the time a resignation is delivered. It is considered vacant by its own terms, which by its terms here is July 31. Now, I've taken that in regard to also what the California Supreme Court had said years ago, which is the right of suffrage is protected by the Constitution of California. Every reasonable presumption and interpretation is to be indulged in favor of the right of the people to exercise the elective process. So what you have here is a circumstance where you can certainly, as I put on the last page, you can determine to wait for the governor's office to appoint. Some jurisdictions have been able to do that quite readily. Others have taken a considerable amount of time. The Registrar of Voters did provide me with a copy of a memo from Mariposa County written in regard to filling a vacancy, and that was authored by the clerk of the board to the board. And it made note that the governor's appointment secretary agreed that with the consolidation of the special with the general to allow the supervisor to be elected in November. Now, again, those are slightly different circumstances. A number of memos justifying either abbreviated timeframes or, in some cases, somewhat of a departure altogether from what would normally be the requirements of this process, have been proffered by various counties to make this happen. My point in raising that is simply, there are many different applications, but I don't believe anyone, at least at the county end, was able to discern a completely common standardized approach. And as specific as the elections law can be, it also has some big gaping holes in terms of how to handle things. So as I was saying, you can certainly wait for the governor's office to appoint. The only issue with, well, the issues with that would be the time frame within which the office could remain vacant. Though I believe that the Registrar of Voters has a list of other counties, so it's not always a lengthy period of time. It just can be a lengthy period of time. And I believe she can, I'm certain, provide some information with regard to that. Admin may be able to speak to the research they've done with regard to other counties. But the other issue with regard to that option is that, of course, it's not going to the electorate. The voters aren't going to make that choice. The second option would be to simply accept the resignation today. It would not change the effective date, but you could accept the resignation, which arguably would preclude withdrawal of the resignation. So while the vacancy doesn't occur, and it would not be vacant until July 31, you could at least begin the precatory process for nominations in lieu of filing to allow the election to move forward on the November ballot. Again, a consolidation of a special election, which this would be, with the general election. Now, again, that requires that you look at this and essentially determine that, well, the office isn't vacant, but we're going to allow this to move forward. I have put in about 5 pages what I think the logic of the situation is. I will tell you that in most of the circumstances, the jurisdictions have just done it and said, well, we think we can proceed this way. So I think that you may have 2 options. I don't know which of the 2, if either the registrar would recommend. She's obviously aware of this work and I believe agrees that these are 2 options, but she can certainly speak in her own voice. She doesn't need me for that. But ultimately, this would be your board's decision to make.
Thank you, Ms. Grant. Maria, did you want to, I see you're on Zoom, did you want to add anything to that?
Good morning. I concur with what Mrs. Grant is saying, that, you know, we looked at it, spent a lot of hours researching it, providing information to Mrs. Grant, and she's come up with these 2 options that, you know, follow suit onto what most of the other counties have done in instances where they've had vacancies. So again, yes, the board either decide not to do nothing and let the governor appoint, or move forward with calling for an election so that we can move forward and allow time for signatures in lieu, as well as nomination period, as stated in the resolution.
Thank you. Supervisor Sabatier, I see you have your pen up.
Yeah, I wanted to make 2 statements. One is I don't feel comfortable today. A vacancy is very specific, that it only occurs once the seat is vacated. To call for an election while we still have a supervisor who can absolutely change their mind on July 31st or July 30th. We've kind of been through that with another elected official who is still in their seat right now, who offered us a letter and then retracted that letter. That is the right of Supervisor Scott to change her mind, or if life changes occur that she wants to remain here and continue to serve District 4. And for us to approve, I feel, is almost like us replacing by force or firing another colleague of ours who was elected by the people, and I'm very uncomfortable with that. And so I understand that other things have been provided to us from Ms. Grant and from Ms. Valadez, but after reading through the code, That is what I've come to, is I can, and I've looked at what some other counties have done, and the majority wait till after the vacancy occurs to make these types of decisions, not typically before. But granted, it's all over the place that there are some examples where they do. But I don't feel comfortable making a decision for what Supervisor Scott will do. Supervisor Scott needs to take that action, vacate the seat. Then we have that capability to do so, which means waiting after July 31st. It is her right to make a decision and make changes as she sees fit, as she is an elected official. Second, I need to say this. We've already asked the governor to appoint somebody, and I am not happy with that. I don't know who approved of that, but that did not come in front of the board. It was our previous CAO who wrote a letter saying, as of this date, please appoint somebody. And again, Supervisor Scott has every right to say no or stop, yet we've already submitted a letter to our governor asking for his office to take those actions to replace a sitting supervisor. And I need to state that because that is, in my opinion, wholly inappropriate to ask to replace somebody who is still in their seat and has been elected by the people. So I'm okay with the conversation, but I am not okay with action until Supervisor Scott has made that final decision to truly step down.
Ms. Grant?
And I would just say that I completely understand what you're talking about. The distinction that we're drawing here in terms of once accepted, again, arguably not susceptible to withdrawal, is simply to maintain the statutory timeframes, which, while abbreviated, are still in existence. A number of jurisdictions who've decided to go the other way, at least several of the jurisdictions deciding to go the other way, have simply abbreviated those statutory timelines. And I simply can find no basis to unilaterally justify that and recommend it to your board. So this was the only solution that we felt was viable if you want to proceed with election. But as I said, you're always perfectly within your rights to just simply wait for the governor's appointment.
And if I just may finish, I think that the decision of whether this goes to election or appointment is up to Supervisor Scott based on what timelines are proposed, not me, and what I feel, not the board. That is a personal decision, and that decision has the impact of whether it can go to election or not, but that is not up to us.
Ms. Valadez, no, actually, no. Vice Chair Scott, I see your pen's up, so I'll let you go first. Sorry.
Supervisor Sabatier, I appreciate your comments, and I agree with you. This seat is not vacant. I'm still here, and I believe this discussion needs to happen when I am gone.
All right. I did have a question, but I forgot, so it's okay. Any other comments from the board? All right, I will open it up to public input.
I'm not able to make that first meeting when Supervisor Scott's not here, so I'm just letting everybody know that that first week in August, I'm unable to attend, and so it would have to be after that.
Okay.
Or without me. And that, if it's happening without me, then I would just say now that I've just been through a campaign with 3 other candidates, and to not have the primary process, whittling it down to 2 candidates, we could possibly set ourselves up to have a winner who does not receive the majority of the votes, and I find that fundamentally unfair. And the district changing so much for District 4. If this was not a special election, then the new districted lines would apply. But because it's a special election, the old district lines apply, and I find that also fundamentally unfair.
Ms. Valadez, you have your hand up.
Yes, Supervisor Faxton mentioned the old district boundaries. So if this were to come back to the board, let's say August 1st, it does not give me enough time to set my districts because, like she stated, it's the voters that were in District 4 as of the 2011 supervisorial redistricting boundaries. So, and candidate filing would end on August 12th.
Actually, you reminded me of my question, and that was, you answered it basically, is that If there was consensus of the board to wait till after August or when the actual, when the resignation takes place, how much time would you need to adjust from there? And it looks like you wouldn't, it would be very hard for you to do, right?
Yes, it would, because I would have to pull the voters that were moved from 4 to other districts and move them back and fix all my voting precincts accordingly. And I don't know how much time it would take. It takes a while to do all of that. So I just wanted to point that out.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Spati?
Yeah, quick question. I believe code says it needs to be 106 days before election or 107 days. Can you clarify what code states, or at least for a typical election, not a special election? Because July 18th is what we would be aiming for with what's presented to us today. But I think that's to keep with the normal amount of days that government code provides for us.
So normally for in lieu of filing period, it's 173 to 118 days, which allows 56 days of signature in lieu of gathering. And for the nomination period, it'd be 113 to 88 days, where it's 26 days. So based on the resolution that was presented to you, we would allow 19 days of in lieu of filing period so that we could verify all the signatures, and then that last week, just only the nomination period. But we still have to verify, all the signatures if there were any turned in.
I appreciate that, and I think that's all good information to know. And again, the decision, in my opinion, rests wholly on Supervisor Scott.
All right. So now I'll open it up to public input. Is there anybody in the chambers that would like to come up and speak on this item?
So, Jillian Perillo, I just want to make note that there are several people that have put memos on the record, and so if those could be considered, all of them basically saying that nothing can be done until Supervisor Scott leaves on July 31st.
Thank you. And I'll just read the public comment from Dirk Slutin, Michael Green, Jillian, Linda Hatfield, and then, of course, the memo from County Council. That's what we have submitted here. And then, of course, public comments from 2 of the similar people that were listed in the public. Their statements that were emailed or submitted. Anybody else from the chambers? Anybody on Zoom that has a comment? All right, with that, I'll bring it back to the board. And so far, it looks like we have like a majority that doesn't want to move forward.
Yeah, until the seat's vacated, yeah.
I think that's where we'll go with that.
So for this type of thing, do you need 3 votes or 4 votes? If there was a decision, so if this happened when I wasn't here, it would be able to be carried by 3 supervisors, or will this discussion?
Well, there won't be a discussion in August on this same issue.
Okay.
But I don't believe from what the registrar was saying that there would be enough time. And I can say that if you were to simply abbreviate time for an in lieu of filing and nomination process, I am unable to find anything that would support that beyond the provisions that I've provided.
Okay.
That's why it's not a complete choice. It's what's available that I could find. So in terms of the governor's office, I mean, your board can certainly take that matter up again and make a request as your board on August 1 to send that request to the governor, and that would just take a majority vote to do so.
Okay.
Okay.
Looks like that answered both your questions.
Yep.
I was going to say, I do want something to come back. That way, the public is aware of the request, and we are aware of what the request is as well.
Completely.
So, yes.
All right.
And there's nothing further to be done?
Okay.
Okay.
That's what I was looking for. So thank you, Ms. Grant, and thank you for the discussion. It looks like with this, we will await for the actual date to move forward before any other discussion happens about what to do with the position at that time, right?
Well, again, your discussion is going to be sending it to the governor
Right.
because it won't be able to go to election, just so.
Thank you for asking that.
Yeah, there won't be a discussion of that, so Supervisor Pyska's concern about being absent that day won't be.
Okay. All right. So we'll close this item, and we'll go on to 7.2. Does that sound like a good one to go to? All right, consideration of a resolution adopting a display of flags policy. Supervisor Pyska, it looks like you brought this forward, so I'll give the floor to you.
I did bring it forward, but I didn't prepare it. It was prepared by admin, and it was just in response to our discussion in the beginning of May about non-official flags.
Right on time.
Great entrance.
Hi.
Hello.
Okay. Can't breathe. Good morning, Chair Crandall and Board. This is loud. Carolyn Purdy, Administrative Analyst. Today I am presenting the agenda item to consider a resolution adopting a display of flags policy. Can't breathe. On May 17th, Supervisor Pyska sponsored an agenda item to purchase and display the flag, the pride flag at the Lake County Courthouse for the month of June 2022, which your board approved. It came to our attention that there was not a formal flag policy in place to address the display of ceremonial flags at county facilities. I'm sorry.
Take your time.
The purpose of this resolution is to establish clear guidelines for the exhibition of the United States of America flag, the California state flag, and the County of Lake flag at the courthouse and other county buildings. This resolution also addresses the display of ceremonial flags. The resolution and proposed policy are attached for your review, and I can answer any questions.
I don't see any questions. Supervisor Sabatier?
So I appreciate that we have this in front of us. As far as the, oops, I opened the wrong thing. Or did I not go far enough? There it is. But as far as the process to approve, I was concerned that there wasn't limitations, and I want to offer some limitations. For example, that the only political flags would be our federal government flag, our state flag, and our county flag, no other political flags. No flags connected to any hate groups, no flags depicting a specific individual, no flags shall be approved that depicts acts of violence or obscene visuals, no flags that represent any private, nonprofit, or government agency or business. These are more, I think our intention is made to be more of a message of what we're supporting based on our, but without those negations, I feel it opens it up so that it can possibly one day come before us and be embarrassing, in my opinion, if something comes before us that is absolutely wholly inappropriate. And while I would like to believe that all of us would never bring something inappropriate, it can and it will happen at one point or another. So I think having some restrictions of what can be provided, I think is a good thing. I just wanted to offer some suggestions. That doesn't mean that all of them need to be approved. But those were the only things that I just want to see if we can decrease the possibility of inappropriate things.
Okay, so spell those out within the policy.
That's what I would say, but I would look to the board to see if they approve of looking at specific restrictions such as the ones that I offered.
I agree with those.
And I did consider that, but I mean, I'm fine with it, but, you know, there's not really a way to block everything. And so, you know, sometimes general is better, but if you want to add these specifics, I'm fine with it. So, you know, if there was a time down the road when something inappropriate or offensive came up, you know, where there's a will, there's a way. So I appreciate safeguarding it a little bit, but I'm also okay with the general language, so.
And quick question, usually we go through the proclamation approval process in our consent agenda. Would that approval process be the same approval process for a flag if it's requested within that, or would that request come separate?
It would come separate. It would be with a resolution, so it would be separate.
Oh, I have another question. So is the Palmilla flag, is that political or is that,
I don't think that's political.
POW?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
No, it's
okay. I just didn't know what it was considered.
I don't know the exact term, though. I can't speak to that, what it's.
Prisoners of war missing in action.
Yeah, I know what that is, I know what it is, but is that a state or a federal flag like, I've seen it on.
Yeah, because it's at a post
Capitol.
office a lot. and-
Yeah.
But, yeah, I don't know if which one that falls under.
State or federal, right?
I think this just has to do with veterans. I'm not sure exactly. Vice Chair Scott?
I believe adding that language, as Supervisor Sabatier pointed out, would just make it clear that we would not entertain a hate flag, and so don't bring it forward to us to put on the courthouse.
And I mean, it's a bad example, maybe, but in New York, it did go to the Supreme Court, and it was approved to remove the BLM flag because it is a political party. And so I think having those things in there, it just helps us to get away from accidentally putting ourselves in a position where we might have a level of support, but it's inappropriate for us to show that level of support on our flag stand.
Sheriff, it looks like you have your camera on. Would you like to unmute? There you go.
I do, yes, thank you. I would like to strongly encourage the board to consider a strict policy on only flying government flags. When we talk about making a determination about what's appropriate and what's not, we're not going to allow hate crimes. Those things are malleable as time goes on. So what's considered something that may not be supportive of hate speech or something that the board wouldn't support today might change over the next couple weeks, couple months, over the next several years. And I think it just opens up to conflict. And you also run into the issue of what your determination as a board on what should be protected speech and being allowed to fly over the courthouse might greatly differ than a member of the public. And Supervisor Sabatier mentioned the Supreme Court decision. I think having a policy that leaves things up to the interpretation of the board is going to open up the opportunity for challenges to be presented when really those flags that fly over the courthouse should be a representation of the authority under which we all serve, and that would be the state flag, the U.S. flag, and any other flag that's deemed appropriate by the government. I just think it's you're getting on some shaky ground when you start making a determination about who can display a flag in support of something and not allowing everyone to do the same thing. Those are my only thoughts on the subject.
Supervisor Sabatier?
And I just want to respond to that. I believe, if I remember correctly, in the way that it's written, that the only flag that would go back and forth would be the county flag and then an approved flag. And in my mind, I'm thinking flying a flag with a blue puzzle piece in support of autism awareness is a beautiful thing to do as a community, to really not just have a proclamation that we speak of verbally, but to fly it on our flagpole, not replacing any of those other flags, but just to really visually share that support as well. So that, I understand. I think there's always going to be a possibility of errors or bad opportunities, but I think that this can create some good opportunities, and I think they overshadow the bad. So I appreciate the comment, but I think that we can make it work.
Ms. Grant?
Some of the sheriff's points here with regard to content and your board's consideration of content. First Amendment precludes a great deal of that, in fact, almost all of it. Democracies allow all the bad and the good. I think you can put restrictions on what you're talking about, but you need to define them properly so that it's not going to be what could be in some jurisdictions a political change of winds depending upon who sits in the board seats. Right. And that's what you need to guard against. And also, fairness demands that there are very clear criteria. So it applies to everyone across the board equally. And then it's not content-based. It may it's going to be based upon the purpose for which you deem those flags are appropriate to fly. So there are ways to keep out certain things and still allow things that evince a community spirit. But again, it takes a little language to do that.
Would you be able to help us with that language?
Yes, I would be able to help you.
Thank you.
And I would be happy to.
All right, so anyone else in the chambers that has a comment, please come up and.
It's been a while since I drove through Lakeport at night, but for the U.S. flag, is there a light on it at night? For sure. Okay.
Could you state your name for the record, please? Sorry.
Tyler.
Mitchell.
Thanks.
Please let us know if it's ever out.
All right. Anyone else? I don't see anyone on Zoom, so with that, we'll bring it back to the board for action, and I think you wanted to add, and I think there was support for adding the policy, and
I think we were going to bring it back.
bring it back. Okay, that's what I thought. I didn't
If
know.
everybody agrees on the direction, then
Yeah.
that's-
Yeah, I think
I can have the language for next Tuesday if that's what your board wishes.
That's what I'm in agreement.
Okay, looks like we'll do that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, and thank you, Carolyn.
I'll
very
be
much.
back
Thank you.
without running next time.
Yeah, sorry. All right, with that, it looks like we are at 11:59, so I'm going to stay true to what we talked about earlier and take our lunch break at exactly 12, come back at 1, and finish with we'll start with those pulled agenda items. That's what we'll go with. So thank you, and we'll see you after 1.